Excited once again to introduce you, to welcome you to the Innovation Village destination. Some of Uganda's most promising entrepreneurs call home, right? Very exciting, the things that the people are trying to work on here. The Wi-Fi password that you need to connect to is Liquid Telecom. Liquid Telecom are our partners. They give us a 10 market footprint across Africa. So if you're an innovator and you're attached to us and you want to go to 10 African countries, we're able to hook you up with people within that footprint. So the Liquid Telecom, the password is Innovate 2017. I think, Solomon, let's write the Wi-Fi here, password. And the hashtags. The hashtags for today's conversation are End Poverty, End Poverty, and the hashtags are here, right? So it's Innovation Day, hashtag End Poverty and hashtag Uganda Can, right? Is it possible for us to end poverty? No one answered. Yeah? You think so? You think so? No? All right, so we're about to start, but we're going to give it a few minutes to allow other people to join us, those who are on their way, stuck in traffic. So my request is that you please, get to know someone you don't already know. Pick up a conversation. I see people are seated with the people they know. The Kano people are with the Kano people. The World Bank people are seated alone. Yeah? And I think we've given you the Wi-Fi password, but please connect with someone you don't know. Introduce yourself, make a new friend, and let's build connections, which is part of our objective today. But for me, the revelation, and I'll be sharing later, is this has happened in 2.5 years. But it wasn't always like this, which is why I strongly believe with everything I have, which is nothing, in the power of entrepreneurship and innovation in becoming, a socio-economic tool for transformation. Because the reason we built the village is we looked at the last 10 years of how we're supporting entrepreneurs, innovators, and SMEs. And what kept me awake personally was the last 10 years can easily become the next 10 years if nothing different is done about how we're supporting entrepreneurs. And how we've mostly supported our entrepreneurs is through innovation competitions that bring together 100+ submissions, and we give idea 1, idea 2, idea 3, $2,000, $1,000, $500. It's not enough for anyone to do anything about anything. So these guys go on to buy an iPhone X or a laptop, and they wait for the next competition. So for the last 10 years, we've literally been building competition entrepreneurs who are waiting for what's the next application opportunity for me to benefit to get $5,000. The guys who won the 2015 MTN challenge don't work together anymore, but the challenge was repeated in 2017. 3 weeks ago, I saw an entrepreneur, a Ugandan entrepreneur, who moved to Rwanda for the weekend and won their innovation competition, and he came back with $5,000. So literally building competition entrepreneurs. And yet, if you zoom out, what's happening across Africa, the region, Africa, and the world, innovation and entrepreneurship is literally defining new opportunities for everyone, helping end poverty. What's happening across the world? A small country like Israel that has about 9 million people gets more venture capital than the entire Africa that has 1.3 billion people or more. We got about $380 million to support entrepreneurs in Africa in 2016. $100 million went to Kenya. $100 million went to Nigeria. Another 100 went to South Africa. Rwanda, which is 10 times smaller than Uganda, got $16 million. Uganda, we got plus or minus $300,000, plus or minus. And yet we call ourselves the most entrepreneurial country in the world. Just half year this year, Nigerian startups raised $90 million. These are entrepreneurs like you, right? $90 million. And there's a Kenyan company that raised $48 million. Now, $48 million is the combination of our entire, the budget for our two ministries combined for science and innovation. So what's happening and how do we tap into the potential of our entrepreneurs to give them opportunities to realize the dreams that they represent? Now, that's the story of the Innovation Village, and I'm excited about what's happening. Our community is growing, and what we see the Innovation Village as, we are an ecosystem builder, and we build pathways to investors. So in the village, we have 3 companies that invest, that sit here. So an entrepreneur can walk straight up to a company and pick up a conversation. We build pathways to public. We've signed a couple of contracts with government agencies to help them apply technology. We build pathways to private sector, that's banks, telcos, utilities, to explore how do we co-innovate with you, and also academia and the development world. We're excited about what innovation does represent in solving our biggest challenges like poverty. And that's the story of what we're trying to achieve. At this time, I'd like to welcome Nobu from the World Bank to share more about today. Today is International End Poverty Day, but he's more experienced in these things than I am, so please, you're welcome. Let's put our hands together for, yeah?
Okay, thank you very much. I'm introducing myself first. I'm Nobuo Yoshida. I'm lead economist in the World Bank. And my main job is try to monitor and analyze extreme poverty in many countries. And Uganda is one of the countries I'm working for. So today, I wanted to share with you a World Bank's flagship report we call Poverty and Shared Prosperity 2018. This is a kind of report we produce every 2 years to monitor World Bank's twin goal, which is ending extreme poverty by 2030 and also promoting shared prosperity. So to see whether our world as a whole is achieving that goal or not, so we write this report to check. So this is a quick summary. Basically, we are producing this report every 2 years to monitor basically 2 goals, ending extreme poverty and promoting shared prosperity. Yeah, and this report has a lot of other information, but today I focus on something very important for Africa and Uganda. Basically, when we look at global poverty rate, do you know how World Bank monitor poverty rate internationally? So we use international poverty line, so-called $1.90 per day per capita. This is a poverty line we are using to monitor how many people are living under extreme poverty. So using $1.90, we have been monitoring global poverty rate since 1990. And latest available poverty rate is 2015. Although we are in 2018, but still World Bank's technology can allow us to estimate only 2015 numbers. So this is, I will come back to this point. We need to have more innovation, and we need to improve technology to really understand where we stand. So this is a number, poverty rate. So in terms of number of poor, in the past, basically nearly 1.9 billion, yeah, in 1990. And world was quite successfully reducing poverty. So latest number for 2015 is 736 million. So this is, we can say, great success. And in terms of poverty rate, 1990 poverty rate was 36%. That rate declined 10%. So as of now, as of 2015, around 10% of global population are living under $1.90 per day per capita. That's the situation. But can you move to next slide? Yeah. But concern, particularly for Africa, is basically at this point, nearly 56% of poor, they are living in Africa. In the past, a lot of poor are living in China, and they moved to South Asia, mainly India. And now, most of the poor are now living in Africa. And this share, we are expecting to increase continuously. Yeah? So our concern is maybe around 2020 to 2030, global poverty becomes Africa's poverty. Yeah? That's something we are very worried about. For example, this is a kind of trend. Poverty projection shows poverty is declining in other areas of the world. However, for example, Nigeria, Congo, Ethiopia, these countries' poverty rate is not expected to decline. So this is a kind of challenge we are anticipating. And we did World Bank did a lot of projections and economic analysis. And what we found was, if we don't do anything special, yeah. First of all, even though World Bank said our goal is try to reduce a global poverty headcount rate to basically, even though we say eradicating or ending extreme poverty, but we are not even thinking by 2030 extreme poverty disappear completely. That's not possible. So our target is by 2030, percentage of poor who are living under extreme poverty should be below 3%. We thought that's feasible target. But now our projection is suggesting, looks like that may not happen. Yeah? So if if all countries grow as fast as right now, yeah? So we say like basically what we are doing right now. So if that's the case, 2030's poverty rate is close to 7%, almost double the number we wanted to achieve, yeah, which is 3%. And if world increase growth rate from current level to nearly 8%, that's only a possibility which can take us a global poverty rate below 3%. But 8% of growth rate is a massive number. Yeah, even a country like China could achieve like every year 10% of growth rate for many years, but for most countries, 8% is almost impossible number. So this is something, this year when we did this projection, we became very nervous. Looks like to achieve 3% goal, we need to have almost impossibly high growth rate we need to continue. So that's something we are very worried about. Another thing is you can see share of poor population between Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, East Asia, and Pacific. Yeah? In the past, as I said, East Asia and Pacific had a lion's share of poor population. Then as China grew, East Asia's contribution declined rapidly. Yeah? And then South Asia, mainly India. India had a huge share of global poverty. But that's also, we are seeing huge, rapid pace of reduction. But now please look at Africa. Africa's case, this poor population is not declining. Yeah? Actually, Africa is expected to reduce percentage of poor population. However, because of population growth, still most countries' annual population growth is 3%. With population growth, basically number of poor may not decline as fast as we wanted. As a result, around 2020, basically global poverty is almost identical to Africa's poverty. And most worrisome part is that this Africa's poverty is not declining. Yeah? So this is a kind of thing we did analysis and we started to worry about. So we need to work very hard on this Africa poverty right now, from now to in future. And we did an additional analysis for Uganda only. And Uganda's case, we have a different level of poverty line, but I want you to focus on international poverty line. This red line represents $90 poverty line. Yeah? And then this dotted line is your country's official poverty line based headcount rate. So both $90 and official poverty headcount rates showed quite a bit of reduction until 2012, more precisely 2012-13. However, 2016-17, poverty started to show increase. Do you know why? There are many possible reasons. Yeah? But Uganda couldn't avoid to reduce poverty for 2016-17, mainly because of 2016 drought. As you may know, 2016 drought is not just Uganda. This is Africa region-wide impact. So something related to climate change and El Nino. And what we are worried about is this kind of climate change becomes worse and worse and worse every year. So this kind of problem may happen more frequently. So we really need to fight against climate change and other problems. But this is something we wanted to share. So today we are leaving two documents. This is poverty and equity brief. We are leaving. This is about Uganda. Yeah, World Bank prepared a very short review, and then also we have a main flagship report, PSPR report, chapter 1. This is a good summary of what is going on in the world. So I'm leaving this printout, so please pick up that before leaving. So this is a quick summary. Right now, global poverty is becoming sub-Saharan Africa's poverty. That's very worrisome. And the next one. Then Uganda, pace of poverty reduction has been very fast, but it was stalled mainly because of severe drought. Yeah? So we may need to work on how to deal with drought. Then lastly, as I said, if you want to monitor poverty, progress of ending extreme poverty, you need to collect data set. Do you know usually how much does it cost to collect the data set to monitor, measure poverty? One survey costs easily $2 million to $3 million. And you know how long does it take to collect and process the data set? Easily 2 years. So when you get the number of Uganda's poverty, maybe that number is 2 years old, or in some country, 5 years old. So estimating poverty is very important, but amount of money you need to spend is $3 million, $5 million, and take easily 2 to 3 years. So World Bank is right now doing, like you guys, we are doing a lot of innovations. Let's use big data. Let's use machine learning. Let's use tablet. Let's use a lot of new innovation ideas. Try to reduce the cost of collecting poverty data, but also quickly processing the data set. So I'm leading one of the projects. Yeah, we call SWIFT. SWIFT is a very rapid poverty monitoring tool. For example, originally we need to spend $3 million to $5 million to collect the data set. Now, using SWIFT, we try to reduce that to $5,000. Yeah, using machine learning and a lot of ideas. And also time of estimating poverty. After you collect the data set, you need to process and estimate poverty. You know how long does it take? Easily 1 year to 2 years to process and analyze data set. SWIFT, our tool SWIFT, how long does it take to process the data set? 1 minute, not 2 years. Yeah? So this is a kind of thing World Bank is also doing a lot of innovations and working with private sector so that we can collect the data set very quickly and cheaply and also accurately. Yeah? So this is the kind of thing we are doing to improve our monitoring capacity. This is much I wanted to share with you, and if you have any question, I'm happy to answer.
So I have a real quick question. We are Kano Africa, and we are focusing on ECD, early childhood development, specifically for education. But one of the greatest challenges has been information to really grow our solutions and tailor make it like for Uganda as a pilot country and Africa at large. So my question is, all this data that you're collecting and processing very quickly right now, how would people like guys from Kano Africa have access to this information so that we can use it to work on our solution?
My question is about the statistics you have showed us. You said they are based on Ugandan statistics, UBOS and Uganda Household Survey. And I wanted to know, you as World Bank, do you sometimes go down to the ground and try to prove whether this data provided is really genuine or not, because sometimes it may be exaggerated. So how do you come to prove that it's true so that you can use it and use it at a global level?
My name is Alan, and I wanted to ask a question. From the data you showed, it's very gloomy. And now we know the problem. What do you think the solutions are? Because we've been doing the same things, it's not working. What can we do differently to change that curve? Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Angela Mirembe. As my colleague has said, the information is quite gloomy. Can we also, do any of your statistics show that maybe part of the refusal of the poverty line growing up is maybe attached to education? Because I believe that that is supposed to be the key to success. And yet we still keep bringing up, as young people, we keep talking about the education system, which is supposed to give someone success, is still lacking in a huge way, and yet is being ignored. Is World Bank in any way associated with getting the education system revised?
Okay, thank you very much for a lot of good questions. So in terms of data quality, as you said, we also sometimes worried about data quality. Somebody may exaggerate or may not answering properly. But these days, for example, UBOS is using tablet for data collection. Advantage of tablet data collection is we can almost real-time monitoring whether answer is reasonable or not. Yeah? And for example, in the past, sometimes data collection time, enumerator go to the place like just under the tree, and they fill out all the questions by themselves. Yeah? But now they cannot do that because tablet has GPS. And if they do that, immediately UBOS staff call enumerator, what the hell you are doing, You are supposed to go to house. House is 100 meters away from where you are right now. Go there. So there are many things. For example, looking at the numbers, we are checking whether those numbers are reasonable or not by immediately processing the data set. So you cannot imagine this use of tablet and ITS are improving data quality dramatically. Yeah, so we are very happy about that, and UBOS is one of the most advanced institutions in developing world. So we are very happy about that. And in terms of technology, so we are developing a lot of new approaches and new innovations, and we are very happy to share the information. We have documentation and others, so we will share that. And whenever we have, we are confident about the quality, we will do the dissemination event, and we will do information sharing. So definitely we will continue to do that. And in terms of, I agree about this grooming picture, And if you ask me answer, obviously, it's a $1 million question, very difficult to answer. But I was working for South Asia for a long time, and I feel, I'm quite optimistic about what is going on in Africa. So your education level is also improving, and young people are becoming more and more active to get business opportunities. So not just sticking to agriculture, they are also thinking about non-farm sector. So quite a good movement is going on, but obviously we need to help and help these kind of ambitious young people can access to more finance and technology so that they can do something new. But until now, access to finance is extremely difficult. And access to information is very difficult. So even though young people are very ambitious, like same as California, young people in California, Silicon Valley, they are also very ambitious, but they have access to finance. They have access to technology. They have access to knowledge and information. But a lot of people in Uganda, particularly northern areas, even though young people are ambitious, very difficult to get information and infrastructure and finance. So that's the kind of thing obviously very important. But I'm sure today we will have a lot of discussion later. That time we can also brainstorm a lot of possibilities. But I can tell you a lot of poor countries in South Asia also went through the similar situation. Once in a while they gave up. Very difficult to grow. We are repeating the same thing for the last 20 years. But then suddenly things work out, and now if you go to South Asia, everybody is so ambitious, optimistic about future. I'm sure you can get that kind of opportunity sometime soon, and let's work together to find solutions. Thank you very much.
Interesting that young people don't have access to funds even when the president of the country is moving around with bags of money. and claiming to be giving to young people. Brian White is also moving around with lots of money, but it is actually true that availability of funds is still an issue, but not availability of minds willing to solve a problem of poverty. If not for the entire country, at least solve poverty for yourself and those in your family, because they're also part of the same country. So slowly, I think it was Adra that used to say, changing the world one life at a time. And I strongly believe in building from the bottom. But right now, let's listen to a young person speaking. I am a young person too, and this is not an opinion of myself. My mother thinks so, and so does my dad. And so we can go with that. So we are going to be listening to a young person, Ruth Msokebi Nzika. She's a manager of the Skills Development Facility, a $21 million project. Now, I don't know exactly what that means, but what I do know, it is a lot of money, especially if it is in Uganda shillings. So she's going to come to be speaking to us. She does lead a scheme which supports employer-led short-term training to address skills imbalances in agriculture, construction, and manufacturing sectors in Uganda. It is implemented by the private sector and financed by the World. I'm told there's nothing like World Bank. It is World Bank. The emphasis there is very important, and it is $100 million Uganda Skills Development Project. She will not speak unless there is a thunderous applause. Ladies and gentlemen, your hands together. Ruth is going to be speaking, and later on there will be some questions. I've seen Ruth several times, and I've not seen her once when she doesn't pass for the description of elegantly dressed.
I'm very happy to be here and be able to share with you. According to the theme, I will talk to you about a few things, and then what I would also do is to just share with you about the fund. Because as he said, our fund is also a program of the World Bank. And interestingly, we've added on ICT, which is good, because before we'd only fund agriculture, construction, manufacturing, but now we do fund ICT, we fund tourism, we fund transport and logistics. Isn't that more covering now? And you can access up to $50,000, which is good. And if you've been around for 1 year, if you are like NGO or Association of Youth, you can access the money. If it's a company, however small it is, if you've been around for 2 years, you can access our grant. I'll talk about it last. When Shayla called me yesterday and she told me, you know what, you have to come and speak to these people. My schedule has been tight. I've actually been at the New Vision. I'm the chair of the Pakasa Award judges for this year. I hope I could see some of you there. I don't know if you did apply for it, but we are starting to shortlist. All right? And she told me the theme was about youth and the changing nature of work. Isn't it? All right? And all the time when they invite me to speak to youth, I always tell them, you've heard people talking about the future. Who are the future? Eh? Who are the future? Youth, eh? Let me tell you something. These guys are not going anywhere. Any what? I'm telling you. I always tell youth, unless if you are a prepared youth, that is when you can be part of the future. A prepared youth must be ready to make it. You must show the purpose. You must show the courage. You must show the brains. You get it? Because it is not easy to convince these people. You get my point? Currently, I'm 38 years, but my journey started at 19 years. I was able to show people that I can manage. By 22 years, I was managing 100 people. Very small. You get it? Nobody is going to say because you're 18, 19, that you're going to be the manager. No way. You have to show that you can reason. You have to show that you can work. It's not about being, some people say, because gender, because I'm a girl. You get it? No, it is not like that. Every time you stand up, they'll say, she can't manage. She can't make it. They always say, this youth, they can't work. It is not true that you can't work. It is not true that you cannot run a business and it succeeds. You get it? But it is you to show that you're able to make it happen. All right? And I am happy that this platform should be able to give you that kind of courage. And I wanted to remind you that for me, where I am, I became a director at 26 years. A director is like the high. You pass through an officer, you go through another level, you pass through a manager, you go to a director. All right? At 26, why? I had already done my master's anyway. I applied and I said, I'm going for it. I went to the panel, I was the youngest, and I gave the best solutions. It means if you have a business solution, yours can pass. It can pass and sustain all the obstacles. And somebody of 50 years, his does what? Fail. You get it? If you're able to show that you're able to make it. I wanted to just talk about just a few things to leave behind. Normally, whenever they invite me, I always say, within 10 minutes, you pick one. Don't take so many. Don't. Just one. Because everybody, you pick something new that you can take home. All right? And I think the first thing I told you, they shouldn't lie you, we are the future. No. All right? You can only be the future if you are prepared. Are we clear? All right? Because I can tell you, there are people I have seen in offices, they are not going anywhere. Anywhere. Forget about politics. Not anywhere. All right? You have to just create your space. All right? You can say there are times in Kampala where all buildings were for old people. Now you can see young guys having buildings, isn't it? All right? But you try to create your space. All right? That is extremely very important. The other thing I wanted to talk about is embracing changes into technology. And I think this platform really answers, isn't it? You know, there are times when we didn't think that technology matters. I could not believe that my mom, my story is an interesting story. My mom and my dad met. My mom was 14 years. The boyfriend was 15 years. Really? Isn't that abduction? Eh? I don't even know. And then they got married. And seriously, 14 and 15 getting married, it's just the wrong configuration. All right? Never my mom stopped like in P5, my dad stopped in P6. So really, none of them had better English than the other. All right? And then what happened? They got married, we are just 14, we are 14. Now we are 10. All right? And my point was like this. I didn't know that my mom, now with her phone, with her phone, she can transact, banking on the phone, all right? Pay all the bills on the phone. You get it, all right? It is the same way we never thought that post offices would ever close, isn't it? And I think people who were tagging their business on post offices, when technology changed, they lost what? They lost business, all right? These taxi guys in Uganda have to wake up because Uber is taking over the business, isn't it? Now borders came and said, we have to complain. These Uber border are thieves. They are not paying taxes. It is because technology is what? And technology is very important in any sector you're in. Any sector you're what? Whether it is hospitality, whether it is education, whether it is anything. And I think that for me, if you're here, you need to see what is the trend. And I think I'm talking to the right audience. You're more ahead of me, even more than I can imagine. So I don't want to say so much about that. Okay? And then I wanted to also say, you must embrace changes in market trends. All right? Because sometimes they are things that we can make money from, but we don't think we could ever make money from. I didn't tell you. There is another company I sit on the board. I sit on the board of Uganda Funeral Services. I'm a board member. I sit on so many boards, but now I'm done. All right? And you know what happened? When this lady started this business in 2002, nobody ever dared to talk about making money from dead people. How many are now making money from dead people? They are counting when he's going to die. You get it? I'm on the board and we have to do better marketing. We have to prepare you properly, talk to you, and you get it. But at the end of the day, when your fresh seasons to be fresh, you are a business. You get my point? So it means that we have to see. I gave you a very, very good example. Because nobody would ever think that funeral service. But now in all our villages, don't you see smaller funeral companies? Don't we see them? All right? A very, very simple example I always tell people. In this room, there are few people before. 15, let me say, I think about 20 years ago, maybe 4 people. I can see Diana there. You see her standing, Diana. Diana is there from the bank. You see her? All right? You see this gentleman here? All right? And the other 2. Those are the guys who would qualify to take mineral water 20 years ago. Mineral water. Because, when you're at a party and they bring water, they're like, these guys are the one who take water. Man, they said, let me take my soda. 20 years ago. Am I lying? 20 years ago, somebody would never choose mineral water over soda. What is happening now? You get my point? You see how things change? That even now in the village, they no longer want soda. They would rather prefer what? All right? People are going more organic. All right? So it means when you are in business as a young person, you need to look at the market trend because things, I can tell you, change. They do what? Change. If you are static, and for you, some of you think, for me, my thing is unique. I always have a challenge. I meet so many people, and somebody, Madam, I want to see you. Mine is so unique. It is not common. Somebody comes and tell you, really, you've seen that thing long ago. But he's telling you about something that is what? He thinks it is unique, but it is not what? He is not changing it. There are people that I've talked to. If your business, you don't change it, I can tell you, you must change your business all the time. Customers change, trends change, ages change, all right? And today, this morning, I was comparing some local companies in Uganda. You know Movit. Movit, you know it, all right? If you remember Movit of 10 years ago, what did they do? They came in with Vaseline for babies. Remember that brown Vaseline? You remember it? Some of you say, this thing would. Do you know their products now? Have you seen their hair shampoos? Have you seen their best forms? Actually, they have now unique names. I don't know where they get those names. Before their names were like Simanyi Aine, Simanyi Nakachwa, their products. But now you look at a product and you're like, is it from France? Have you looked at their products? They have very nice products because they have been able to learn the market, grow on the market, and said, you know what, even when we do baby products, we can actually do some women hair products. We can do foam products, bathing products, and other products. And that's how business is. And I have seen them changing. And I think NBS, you're from NBS. NBS is another very good example that came with a different product on the market. These guys, the last 7 years, I think about 5 years in NBS, they just came in, looked at the market and said, okay, let's try to come up with something different. And they got their market, which they did not have 5 years ago. Is that true? And I think for me, that is what you have to do. If what you're doing is not growing, if your business sales are not growing, because Uganda, if you look at our growth rate, if you're not making 5% growth, at least I'm taking the minimum. Paya, in your business, close. Change. There's something wrong, all right? There's something what? Look at it, there's something wrong. I think I'm actually not going to continue then, because I need to talk about SDF. Maybe one last thing I'll do, I'll not go through this, because now I need to tell you about SDF at least. And I think for me, one last thing I'll say, because I don't have time, which is very, very critical for young people, is to have the right friends. Out of all the points I had, I don't think I need to leave that aside. Successful people don't have so many friends. They don't. But sometimes young people make a mistake. You have so many. Let me tell you, if you have more than 4 friends, I don't know. I've been sampling people and asking them, who are your friends? You know this one, ABC, the other one, no, it doesn't work. And you must have the right friends. Because the right friends would make you go up. If you have the wrong friends, a friend that you talk to and say, you know what, I want to start an IC ICT company. I want to start software development. And the friend would say, I don't think it's possible. It is not possible. It doesn't work. All right? A person who is negative, actually, they are more excited about your failure. That is not a friend. Have you ever had a problem and then you call somebody? All right? And then when you have a problem and you talk, hello, you know what? I have a problem. My contract, I was supplying my consignment and it was cancelled. All right? Okay, is it true? What happened? So what? You can talk for even 30 minutes. All right? Then you call another friend. Hello? Do you know what? I've gotten a deal. I am going to supply uniforms. I'm doing uniforms, isn't it? I am supplying uniforms. I can't even believe it's a contract of 100 million. Hey, okay, that is good. Full stop. Bye. You get my point? Eh? Have you noted those two different people? Eh? A number of people would love to hear failures. You get it? So it's always very important. I always tell people, if you have your phone with you, get your phone and delete. Negative, eh? Anybody you think is negative, do what? Delete. Because you don't need them. A number of times when you're down, you only need like 1, 2, 3 people maximum that are going to help you. And I think it's extremely very important as I end to ensure we have the right friends. Because as a youth, you need to stay positive. Sometimes it is positive people that we need that can help us to stay up. Nothing. It's not nothing. It's not even capital. It is that courage that you get from your friends to guide you, to advise you, to show you that it's possible. That cannot remind you that because you didn't go to school, because you didn't get a first class, because you got married so early, because you didn't do this. You get it? You get my point. You need somebody who can tell you know what? Even when you have failed, you can actually be able to make it. All right? I want to stop from here on my talk. Maybe one time... I know. Shayla didn't know I always do this, but I normally do a lot of speaking to youth. A lot of speaking. So maybe another time, I can come and talk about something else. All right? But one thing I always say, when I come and speak to you, you just speak one thing. Just one. One thing. And say, this one thing out of whatever she said, I'd like to do it. And that's it. All right? So I want to talk about our fund in at least 1-2 minutes, because you need to know about it. All right? And in particular, I want to be specific on how you can access it. When it is open, we are going to open up again next month, end of next month. So meaning you can have a chance to apply. All right? And we are very keen supporting initiatives for youth. Unfortunately, now when we are opening, we had companies applying, and we've closed for companies. So now those that will be applying have to come through. Either you have, there's a gentleman who said you have your youth groups, you have your networks. Are you working together as youth? Eh? Are you? Who is belonging to any youth network? Eh? No, please, if you are belonging to any youth network, please just put up your hand. It will help me to guide you. Eh? Network means NGO, CBO, anything where you belong. Eh? You are there. So these ones can now apply from next month. And we are going to give priority to these areas, a number of your areas that you're in. What can we support you? We are looking for young youth that are very innovative, that want to upgrade their skills in what they are doing. All right? I heard what you talked about. ECD was very interesting. Somebody talked about ICT, a number of you are in ICT. We are funding tourism and hospitality, which is so wide. All right? We are funding all those areas, engineering areas. If you want to upgrade your skill as you come as a network, you can be able to access our grant for upgrading your skills, but it also comes with 10% for equipment. So meaning if you get $50,000, $20,000, you can use 10% to buy equipment. And then you can use about 25% to buy materials. And then we have money for tools as well, and certification. A number of you are doing a lot of things, but you need certification in those areas, isn't it? So you get funding for certification as well, and funding for any support for professional fees. Eh? Just imagine, recently there's a group that came to me, and they are young boys doing films. They want to do film industry. And they wanted to bring somebody from Nollywood to come and assist. And we said, yes, we can fund it, because now we are funding ICT. And they were like, what? This guy is charging us a lot of money. I said, how much? He said, he told us we have to pay him $30,000. I said, yes, we can pay it. If he's going to come in with his experience, it's very good experience, and we are convinced that if he comes in here, he can actually work with you, train you, and make sure your products are better. All right? So that is the kind of support that we give. We want you to contribute, though, in kind. If it's a group, we give you 90%, you contribute 10%. All right? Maybe in future when we open up again for companies, which we will, then you can actually apply as a separate company. One company, you come in and apply, and then you can access up to $250,000 as a company. We give you up to 80%. All right? Is that clear? And our website, please write it. www.sdfuganda.org. As I said, this fund is funded by the bank. It's with funding from the World Bank. And as I speak now, we have reached out to 50,000 people, which is quite a big number, from 99 districts. And almost 40% of our beneficiaries are youth. We have a lot of interesting people. We funded companies, large companies, smaller companies that are doing very interesting innovations. And I would love to make sure that we are able to support you as well. And even the Global Village, the village here, should apply as well. All right? I want to thank you very much, and I want to thank the bank for working with us. It has enabled us to reach to a number of Ugandans, and I hope that you can also use this opportunity to access our grants.
Thank you very much. One of the biggest advantages you can ever have in life is being young. The problem is you find out it was a huge advantage after it left, because the last time I checked, being young vanishes every second that passes. So I realized after a very long time that I spent too much time around people solving small problems. You know, you hang around people, and all of you have a problem of 10,000 shillings. It was just a wastage of time. Now I spend a lot more time with people solving big problems, because they say a mind stretched by a new idea never regains its original size. You are generally defined by the size of problems you're solving. You can't become a world champion beating village boys. If you're beating village boys, you're sorting very small problems. If you're fighting big international guys, you're solving big problems. You have problems as big as cholesterol if you're solving small problems like sizes of plates. But if you're solving problems as big as climbing over hills and spending time carrying weights in the gym, cholesterol ceases to be your problem. Your biggest problem is people who are asking you what you're doing right in life, and those are very, very many. And sometimes your phone number goes around too many more times than you want it to go, isn't it? So what is the size of the problems you spend your time on? An innovator is a person who turns an idea into a good or service of value that people are willing to pay for. You may have an idea, but have you turned into a service or good that somebody is willing to pay for? Interesting. Some young man turned an idea into a lot of money and handed that idea to the president, who was asking, what are these? Are they for football? Ladies and gentlemen, does somebody have one or two questions to ask so that we can progress? Hopefully, those questions will be big questions, isn't it? Yes?
I have one question about the young starters. When you talk about funding, I personally, I have ever applied for a fund, and it's quite a long process. So I would like to ask, is that funding specifically for the people who are in organizations, or any organized group, not specifically it's registered under NGO, registered under any other group, but it's a group of youth doing services, making products, and they need a pushover. So I would like you to clarify about that so that we can understand. Either we are to register as an organization under NGO or any other group so that we can do that and get the funding and improve our life.
Ruth, my name is Michael Ochilaja. I happen to be Managing Director of Avasid Africa. It's an agribusiness business value chain, cottage industry, development Africa. I'm also a PhD fellow in the College of Agriculture, Makerere University. I'm not a youth, but I'm a young adult. I'm very excited what you have presented to us this afternoon, but I would like to know your strategy in SDF, because what I know is that there are quite a number of organizations that are talking about youth, but they are not walking the talk. I'm glad to know that you are walking the talk because you are going ahead by giving them funding. I needed to know your strategy so that we can see how we can work together and ensure that we consult with those organizations. African Development Bank, for example, has a very good program. MasterCard International has a very good program related to the youth. There are quite a number of organizations. My idea is that how do we bring these people into a consortium so that we can get these adequate resources to support the youth? You are well aware that the youth, about 80% of this economy. And if we supported the youth, we would be able to push this country and make them more competitive. The other thing is that I don't know whether you are supporting any incubators, accelerators, in ensuring that we really capture those business solutions that can be competitive in the region and the global markets and the regional markets. I think we need to have a strategy of capturing the youth through those incubators and accelerators so that we can see how ways of improving them. So that the issue is we have to be competitive with globalization. My friend was talking about Nigeria taking $300 million, South Africa. Why are they doing that? Do we know why? Thank you.
When you go to our website, I would encourage you to look at window 2, all right? And that is supporting the informal sector. Informal sector means you might not be this very huge, large company. You're not maybe registered. You know what informal is, all right? And then I would also encourage you to look at, if you go to window 1, look at a section for internship and apprenticeship. Because I think that a number of you that want to get support through the incubation, you can actually get support through apprenticeship. It's 100% paid for. When you're learning and you're working and you're incubating your ideas, and we pay for it's like a small salary and what you need for that period. It's quite interesting, actually. All right? And then if you want to focus into the oil and gas industry, you want your products, for example, to target for the oil and gas, you want certification, you should be able to look at window 4. Is that clear? Okay. And if there is anybody that has a very interesting, innovative idea that can be transformed into a training program. You get the difference. I can innovate a product, but it can't turn into a course. You get it? You innovate something that can be turned into a curriculum to train other people to do it. That is window 3. You can go to window 3. That one, we should be able to open it up again. Okay? And my telephone number is 0754 71 3312. I am normally easier to get me on text or WhatsApp. Sure. Not telephone. Calling, no, I rarely pick calls, but I will respond. So when I respond to you, then I'll give you the right person to talk to. All right? Then the other issue would be young startups or supporting youth. One of the main things that we have done, because we support companies, but for a youth, for a young person, we have realized it's easier to access our funds through organized groups. You get it? Because imagine, if you're a young person and you apply and I tell you, give me your audited accounts, you don't have them. Do you have a board? You don't have it. When did you last, do you have an HRM manual? You don't have it. But if you come through an NGO and a registered group of whatever form, it can be a CB, or a CBO is just registered at sub-county. Do you know sub-county? It's a simple certificate. You can't have that. If you're a cooperative, if you're an association, if you're an NGO, and so many, it is easier because when you come as a group of youth, and we are funding a number of youth groups, a lump sum of 200 yours, 400, 500, 1,000, we are funding them, and it is much more easier because the requirements are very, very easy. Very easy. Very easy. And I want to encourage you, if you have this group, it is easier. Don't come as an individual. It will be hard for you. It's even so hard for me to find you one person. You get it? But if you come, we are 100 members. If you're 20 members and above, you qualify. All right? So would that be hard for you? And it would be very good for me if this innovation village can apply and put all of you there. That is easier. You get like 3 or 4, it's easier. I will also know it's coming from the village. You get it? Because a number of times when we are assessing, we have a challenge. We have a number of groups that form because they have had the money. You get my point? So it is easier for me if I know, the innovation village, it has been there. It has not been set up because it is targeted, because it has been there. And because of that, you put in even more efforts. We can even come when you're preparing, when we do a call. I will send my officer to take you through. We handhold you when you're applying. So it is very, very possible. Is that okay? And we are also going to put an opportunity for training institution, most likely in future, where you can go there and register. In case you don't have an association, you can apply through a few training institutions that we are going to select that will be giving vouchers. Is that clear? Then the gentleman that asked me support to incubators, accelerators. Yes, we are actually very keen on that. Under our window for innovative training programs, we are actually working with we are working with Makere through AFRISA. They got a grant of almost 700 million. Cause University as well. TextFad is another group on Entebbe Road. They do things from banana leaves and banana peels. We are working with Q-sourcing. Q-sourcing is in oil and gas. They are doing, they have transformed, these large containers, movable training facilities across the country. You want training, they will find you anywhere. And they are working through that. And currently, I think they are doing a very good job. And maybe one of the things I want to let him know, the person who, AVSI, please apply for our funding. Apply for our funding. We work with organizations, NGOs, organizations that are working with youth. For as long as in your application you show us you're going to work with these youth, you're going to empower them, give them skills, and we see how these skills are going to be used. Are they going to use them to access markets? Are they going to use them to start doing their own businesses? You get it? If it's about just training and it's not linking it to anybody, it doesn't work. Last week I got a company that has contracts I think they got contracts in Dubai and I think Abu Dhabi for oil in the oil and gas sector. And he said, I want 1,000. Actually, I need to get to the bank and with this because he said, I need 1,000 youth. They need this kind of training and certification. And I think for me, this is an opportunity to get to the village and tell them, do you have some of these youth? Because he said, I need the youth. These are the contracts. Everybody is going to earn almost $3,000. $3,000. He was showing me the documentation. He said, can you fund these guys for training and certification? And these are some of the things currently we want to look at for the future. So I think those were the main question. I hope I've answered everything.
It's very interesting and very true when you said that these guys are not going anywhere. I'm part of the 20% of Uganda's population who is going nowhere. Any young person who is interested in being part of the morning breeze, forget it, not now. I've decided to make my job very complicated for I've decided to make my job very complicated for young people because the way I do it, I make it seem like you need a lot of experience of life to be able to do it. And you don't collect experience from a supermarket. You have to live around long enough to be able to have experience. And I chuckle sometimes when I do things my younger colleagues don't do. Once, I think we were reporting for the Uganda Matters event, I think twice, and I walked from Munyonyo to Kampala, and my young colleagues thought that that's a big distance. And I was thinking, this must be joking. Then this year I walked from just before Jinja to Namugongo, about 70-something kilometers. And now, next year, I plan to walk from Gulu to Kampala with the Matters. So if you want my job, those are sort of things you want to be doing. We are going nowhere, not anytime soon. But somebody who is going to be around for some time and is certainly going to be speaking to us today is Solomon Benga King. And he is the founder of Fundi Boots, a learning model that uses robotic training to create and inspire students to innovate. I did hear that somebody is intending to fund people who have a training element. And it does help if you're an innovator and you're certainly over 6 foot something. It does help quite a bunch. Ladies and gentlemen, the kind ones alone, put your hands together for Solomon Benga King.
My name is Solomon King Benge, and I'm the founder of Fundibots. The cool version of our story, teach kids how to build robots. We tend to focus mostly on kids, but our audience is actually primary school, secondary school, and university students. The reason why we do this is something that's very dear to me, and it involves a bit of a background story. When I was young, I was very passionate about science. I loved taking things apart. I wanted to see the people who were inside the radio and who were inside the TV, so I ended up taking things apart just to try and understand how all this stuff worked. Obviously, my dad was not happy, and like a proper African parent, I got the kind of punishment that was deserving. But the problem was that this curiosity is not something that you could eliminate or remove. And so this curiosity and this passion for knowledge and technology and innovation stayed with me for the majority of for my entire life. And I wanted desperately to go to a place where people like me were supported. So obviously, the logical place for that was school. And so I was very excited about going to school, especially secondary school, because I'd been told all these stories about chemistry labs and biology labs and physics labs, and I was one of those very few children who actually enjoyed learning. I went to secondary school, and I was incredibly disappointed that it was just another place where you're taught how to memorize information so that you can pass an exam and move to the next level. I remember this one time, I loved the library. I read the Encyclopedia Britannica. This was way before Wikipedia existed, when encyclopedias used to come on in books. I read the Encyclopedia Britannica from A to Z and just absorbed everything. And so I loved the weird corners of the school library that were not about what was being taught in the classroom. And I found this wonderful book called The Engineer in Wonderland. It was written by a gentleman called Eric Lathwaite, who was a British professor who loved giving lectures to young children during Christmas in the United Kingdom. And it was a wonderful book about the magic of electromagnetism and how you could create linear motors. And they were telling us all these stories about how the trains in Japan would go like 300 miles per hour because they would just float on air because they're being lifted by magnets. And there were all these cool experiments where they would say, this is how you can build this kind of motor, and this is how you can build something that can levitate. So I picked the book and took it to my physics teacher, and I asked him, can we do this? This is so cool, this is so exciting. Can we build this in the classroom? And he took one look at the book and said, this is not relevant. This is not in your school curriculum, so please ignore this. That, for me, I think was one of the most disappointing moments in my life, because that was when I realized that school was not for people like me. So at that time, I was about 15, 16. I remember going through this really tough time just trying to understand how exactly I would gain the knowledge that I wanted to learn. Obviously, my dad wasn't rich enough to, give me the resources I needed. And I remember this idea forming in my head. Very strong memory, walking down Kampala Road, taking food to a family restaurant during the school holiday. Because I was building robots in my house when I was in primary school. I was building all these fancy gadgets in school. I remember this idea forming in my head as I was walking down that road and saying, what if there was a place where people like me could actually thrive? What if there was an opportunity where I could just go to someone and they could guide and mentor me? And I remember growing up, I remember sort of deciding to myself that if I ever became rich enough, I would create a space like this. I continued with school because there is no way my dad would allow me to drop out of school. But then I did drop out of school in my first semester of university. I didn't finish the semester, left the classroom, and then never went back into a classroom. It's interesting, there's an irony because the course, I wanted to do a course in robotics and microelectronics, and this did not exist in university at the time. I wanted to go to MIT. I could not afford to go to MIT, and so the future looked very bleak for me. And so I got this course at Chambogo University because I had been told it was a very practical university. I was disappointed there as well. And then I moved from one course to another, eventually ended up on a course whose future was so basic that the only job I could see for myself at the end of that road was to become a teacher. And the interesting irony about that is that now I am a teacher who's helping kids learn science better. Thank you. I got onto the internet for the very first time in my Essex vacation. This was at a time when you used to pay for internet in minutes. You'd pay like 50 shillings a minute, go to an internet cafe and surf for an hour, then go back to your internetless life. I worked in a cafe, picked up a lot of skills, taught myself so much that people began paying me for the skills that I was doing. So I learned web design. I learned robotics as well. I taught myself programming, 3D, animation, etc. And I became so good that people began paying me for these services, and I started several companies along this path. But this childhood dream that I'd had never left me. And so one day, around 2010, I'm at an event, and I meet this brilliant lady called Betty, who's running a program called Cafe Sci. And Cafe Sci is basically taking unconventional science to schools. And she tells me, oh, wow, you're doing robotics. You have a robotics lab in one of your rooms at home. Can you come and share with the kids? And so I say, yeah, of course, I would love to share with the kids. So I begin talking to kids about unconventional science. So I was talking to them about nanotechnology, about aliens, about all sorts of weird topics that the teachers would never accept in their classrooms. One of the most popular ones was called the science of love. Unfortunately, I was not the expert on that. But these were topics that were so interesting for children, but because teachers were telling them move elsewhere, we became the most exciting thing that they were learning in their schools. And so as I was demonstrating these robots that I was building, these machines that could navigate rooms and could sense environments, and seeing the excitement in the eyes of these children and just watching them get so moved and get so interested in wanting to learn more, I saw the opportunity that I'd wanted ever since I was a child. I saw that this was now a time when I had very meager resources to help kids learn better. And then I also realized that the education system had become significantly worse than it was when I was in school. In 2011, I started Fundibots, began as a project in a spare room in my house. In 2014, I was privileged to earn 2 very prestigious fellowships. One was Echoing Green, and the other is Ashoka. So in 2014, I became an Echoing Green Fellow and an Ashoka Fellow. And those 2 fellowships allowed Fundibots to move from a side project into a full-time project. Since 2014, we have been able to leverage funding, resources, people, networks, to build a movement that is transforming how children are learning sciences in their classrooms. We have a network of 75 schools at the moment. We have worked with more than 5,000 students, and we are in 3 regions in Uganda: Central Region, Eastern Region, Northern Region, and as of 2 weeks ago, we started operations in the Western Region. We've also begun operations in Rwanda and Tanzania, but the thing that we are really excited about is something that we call the enhanced science curriculum, which for us takes a very deep and critical look at the existing government curriculum and says this is what's mandated to be taught in the classrooms, and so we are going to create the tools for practical learning, all right? The government is doing an incredible job teaching theory, and so we want to say, how do we extend this learning and enhance the learning and bring practical learning back into the classroom? So over the next 12 months, we'll be building our enhanced science curriculum tools. We've so far managed to do teacher training for about 54 teachers. And over the next 12 months, we'll be reaching a total of 225 teachers. If we are successful, which I believe we will be, by the end of those 12 months, we'll have created an impact network that will transform learning for at least 27,000 kids in Uganda. And over the next 3 years, we're hoping to extend that network to more than 250,000 students and 1,000 teachers. And that's on the schools and curriculum side of our work. But we are still doing the exciting stuff with the robotics. We are basically running holiday programs. We are helping kids get excited about learning. We are probably one of the few institutions where a child will be passing by our office and they tell their parents, can you leave me here as you go for your errands and come back and find me? Like, our kids absolutely love. One of them shouted in the middle of the classroom that I wish this was my school forever, because we've ignited and unlocked a new way of learning. And it's fun, it's exciting, kids love it, and they keep wanting to come back to our space over and over again. But the people who may be benefiting significantly more are the university interns. So we teach more in the space of about 2 to 3 months of internship with us. We teach more with our programs than these students learn in the university. And these are not my words, these are the words of students who come to our program, because they're learning so much, and we are very excited about that. So Fundibots is transforming learning, we are excited about it, but the purpose behind all of this is basically to create improved opportunities for children, to build new ways of learning, to help people innovate better, and ultimately to help them improve their career prospects, because they are unlocking different ways in which they can learn the practical side of what they're supposed to be doing. So thank you very much, and back to you.
But you know what I picked out of that? You should never allow anyone's opinion of you to become your reality. That's not who I am. That's the opinion of a national organization. They can keep it. Alfred Opio is the founder, Kano Africa, which has developed an education tab that includes curricula-aligned lesson guides and notes and workbooks and assessment tests, exams and digitized textbooks, and all the good things. Let's have Alfred Opio.
I'll briefly say this. The Kano idea came through about 2 years ago. And now it's ironic that we're saying it's just a 9-month idea. But here's the thing. Like many Ugandans, there are very many ideas, very many. Some are interesting, some need to be worked on more. But I'm looking at the interesting one right now. So the greatest thing is funding, like Ruth mentioned before. So 2 years ago, we are looking at this idea, and I'm thinking, how do I get the money to build this thing? The first thing is, because it's a tech-related idea, I need a tech person to do this thing. And I don't know why, but most tech people will always ask you, how much do you have? And it's somehow not there. So the first idea I got, okay, I was like, okay, let me go work, save some money, then do this thing. Like most people will always say, I don't have the money, I don't have the capital. So capital becomes a very crazy idea all over. Everyone you ask will tell you, I do not have the capital. I was the same. Joined a company in Uganda, worked. But all the time I was working, I had issues with my superiors because I kept going into different departments and trying to make things right. I felt like it was too small for me, wherever I was. So somehow I kept going on with issues in there, but I couldn't be fired because I was too relevant in the place where I had been put. But as I was there, I met a guest from America, one of the guys from Zcash. And I spoke to this guy, and I told him, if you have a moment, please look at my idea. And then the Kano idea was just on paper. So he went through this idea for about 3 hours, and he had told me before he did not have time. So I thought we were going to go it for 5 minutes and let go. So he kept going on for about 3 hours, and he asked me, what are you doing here? I told the guy, I'm working. He's like, working on what? After what you've shown me. So I quickly got the idea, and he told me, start this thing as soon as yesterday. And I went the same way. I don't have the money. He said, you don't need money. All you need is people. All you need is people. So again, I went, I do not have the money for these people. He said, no. If you believe your idea is good enough, like you've told me, you will sell it to people, and people will join you based on the idea, not based on money. Okay? So I thank the Kano team. Many of them are here. And all these guys, we're about 17 right now. I had to quit the job the next week and go on starting to build the company. How? By pitching now to people. Now, I first left pitching for money. Talk to people, get the finance person, get the IT person, get the creative person, get administration, everyone, based on the idea. So if you believe your idea is very good, the first thing is get people on board, and you're going to change the world that way. So today, as I speak, we've managed to build Kano Africa. We have a great team of about 17 people. We have so many people in the tech team. However, now these are the products that we are doing. We have, briefly, teacher guides. Very interesting, and our focus is now on the ECD. But our focus being the ECD, it comes from a research that we've read, which was from the United Nations. The greatest time of a child's development or a human being is between 0 to 3 years, the first 1,000 hours of their growth. So as Kano Africa, we are focusing on developing content for a human being on the African continent for between 0 to 3 years of their life. And then there's a lot of other content will come, but our focus is basically 0 to 3 years. And we believe by that, we are going to change this world. We are going to break the poverty cycle. Research has shown in Jamaica, a 20-year study, that a kid who was exposed to their early childhood stimulation earned 25% more than their average counterparts who are not exposed to ECD. And it was unequivalent to those who were brought up in well-off families. So I wouldn't like to say so much for today, but I think those few things will inspire you. I have so many ways that we managed to get through here, and I'm also a teacher as well. I would love to get requests from different people, and which websites to go to, which places to get knowledge, and so many other things that I can't say here right now. You can always go to the kano.africa as our website, kano.africa. You find my email address there on Twitter, and I'll be able to give you exactly how we made it through to this day without money. You understand? Which is a very great thing, and this is the thing that is going to break the cycle of poverty in our nation and Africa at large. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, life is hard. But if you are tough on yourself, life will be infinitely easy on you. I've run 3 marathons, and I'm talking about 42 kilometers. The time may be miserable, but I've done it. This is what I've discovered about doing things by running marathons. If you're to do big things, you've got to find inspiration from you, when everything around you suggests you should stop and try something else. When you're running a marathon in Kampala, a time comes when people who can't run half the distance you're running tell you, Mzee Vayo, bino sibyamwe, bano bakulesedda. And I'm thinking, you're asking me to go home, you cannot run 5 kilometers. And I'm thinking, maybe the best contribution you should be making is shutting up. But they won't. And what I do when they start yelling that is to close my ears. It's not that you can't hear, but I focus my eyes on the ground and tell myself, Samson, just make one more step. Then you see somebody getting on a border and going home, and you're thinking, nobody's even going to pay me for this. Why am I doing it? But if you can, under such circumstances, when you're tired and thinking of going home and doing something you're not going to be paid for, and you just keep one more step, sooner or later, after 5 hours something, you see Kololo again. It's a nice feeling. And I think that's what innovators do when there's no money. In the middle of the night when they are thinking, maybe I should go back and just get employed again. They find inspiration from within. And that's how you get people like Brenda Wazi, the founder of Wazi Vision, which is making affordable eye care. Believe you me, there was a time in my life when I bothered my parents to take me for checking of my eyes because it felt cool wearing glasses. Even when it was clear I had beautiful eyes. Well, that's the opinion of my mother. Brenda Wazi, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together.
My name is Brenda Katwesije. I'm the co-founder of Wazi Vision. If you haven't heard of Wazi Vision is a company that recycles plastic and makes affordable eyewear, just like what I'm wearing. And recently we just diversified by product, and now we're making affordable building materials. And my story is, some people find it interesting. I find it very complicated in the sense that I studied to be a telecom engineer. Yeah, so I didn't practice, not even once. And I remember when I was at campus, you know how usually the big four guys, you know the big four? The Deloitte, PwC, those guys, they come to scout for talent, usually in April, yeah? So I was at campus, and at that time, I felt really bored by what I was doing. And I decided to pass by, what's that place where we usually, the square, sorry? A Freedom Square, yes. The brain is taking in too much. So I was at Freedom Square, and I saw this huge signpost, hey, come, jobs, jobs, jobs. So I went, and I was very curious, and they started telling me about how amazing it is if you work for this company, you're going to, relate with so many people, you're going to look at financials of MTN and what, and I was like, okay. So if I was an engineer, I would be looking at their systems. But now, if I work with these guys, I'll be looking at the money. So I'm definitely interested. So I got a job with one of them, Deloitte, and it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. I learned so much, I grew so much. But with these companies, you do have to work a lot. So every day you sit in front of a computer, you're at your desk by 7:30, and sometimes would leave at 10, maybe midnight. I've done an all-nighter before when I was behind on a deadline. So you know what that kind of exposure in front of a computer can do to your eyes, right? And that's the story of how Wazi started. So I for a prolonged period of time, my eyes were complaining with pain, right? So I woke up one day, I went to a care center. I had insurance, Jubilee Insurance at the time. And this gentleman, he was Indian, very nice, very kind. Yeah, so we have these ones, we have the black ones, we have the yellow ones, we have the blue ones, whatever you want. I said, okay, cool, I'll take these ones. And he said, okay, madam, the bill will be 600,000. I said, wow, okay, I have insurance. I said, oh, madam, your insurance only covers 300,000. You have to get 300K out of pocket. Now really, 300K, if I'm spending 10K per day on lunch, that's lunch for the month. So I was not very amused by that. And that's when I started to get perplexed. Like, why is just a small piece of glasses so expensive? For 600K, you can get a fridge, right? So I started to do my research. I was still there at Deloitte, and I started to do my research, and then I started to discover certain things. The first thing I found out was that the frame is actually more expensive than the lens, yet it's not the most important, in my opinion, right? So my lens cost, I think, about 100K. 500K was the frame. And I'm thinking, a piece of plastic, why is it so expensive? So I started to do some more research, and then I realized that these guys, one, they can't stock up so many pairs because people like variety. So then they'll stock up some Ray-Bans and stock up some Gucci, you get. So they can't buy in bulk, right? So they're able to sell variety. Number one. Number two, I found out that there's a global monopoly over all these eyeglasses. There's an Italian player in this $1 billion plus business, right? A monopolist. So when you wear Ray-Bans, you bought them from the same guy as the guy who's wearing Gucci, the same guy as the guy who, Oakley. All these big brands are actually under one guy. So when one guy controls the price, what happens? It's not going down. So I knew that if I could find a way to cut the cost locally, then I could create a story and an impact here. So that's how we started to look for alternatives of how can we create. And I was very blue, very blue. And that's the time I got an opportunity to go to the US. I was a 2016 Mandela Washington Fellow. And then I started to meet these optometrists and different people. And I realized that with plastic injection molding, I could actually create a pair of glasses. So I started fundraising, looking for a quick grant. And I said, you know what? I can't do this with a full-time job. So I quit my job at Deloitte to completely focus on building Wazi Vision. And it's been one of the toughest things I've ever had to do because I was so green. An engineer turned into a financial consultant. Now I was doing eyewear. Completely unrelated, yeah? But I saw a need. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to work on something that could actually create a difference. So here's what's cool about Wazi glasses. One is that they're durable. They're stylish, but they also cost you 80% less than what's on the market, yeah? And recently, thanks. Yeah, thank you. So recently, we had this very cool conversation with a company in Switzerland, and they did something amazing with the glasses, yeah? So watch this. Thank you, yeah, so they don't break. These ones, we have some that break, so be very careful which one you choose. Yeah. So that's what they did with the glasses, yeah? Still cheaper than the 500K that I paid for a pair that could break. And then we recently realized, you know what? Eyewear industry. A guy loves our glasses. CK comes, buys our glasses. Yeah, Wazi. And then never comes back. Why? Because they don't break and the guy is going to wear his glasses. You get, for 2 years, 5 years. Not so. I said, man, we need to diversify by product. And that's how we ended up going into recycling for building materials, which is really incredible because we have done a product that's 7 times stronger than your average concrete product, and yet still cheaper. We are recycling 2 tons of plastic a week, yeah? And that's PET and what, so we're hiring 10 people, 10 women, I'm like that, yeah? 10 women to collect this plastic from all over Chitezi. We have hotels that are really helping, giving us their plastic. We have the Protea hotels, Naguru Skies, yeah. All these guys are giving us their plastic so that we can recycle it and create something really cool out of it. And yeah, and we're actively fundraising. So if you have some money in your pockets, we would like to make a nice thanks.
Amazing stories. I hope you also start to make some sunglasses. I'm a big fan of shades, so you do? In 2 months, so we will be visiting you there. One of the things I noticed listening to these stories is that each one of these persons had a challenge, and they just refused the idea of not making something big out of their problems. We all have problems. The only difference is the people at the top use them to get to the next level. Then the rest of us mourn and whine about them and tell everybody how life is miserable and why we were born. That's the big difference. If you notice, each one of them came here and told us of their challenge and how it pushed them to where they are. The difference between those speaking and those listening is we all encounter challenges. If we're not mourning about them, we are praying about them and then handing them to the Lord, singing, "Take it to the Lord in prayer." But let's listen to Alan Rakatungu, who is the founder and indeed Chief Executive Officer or Executive Officer, depending on when and where you began your kindergarten, at Intel Word, which developed Zente. Is it Zente or Sente? Sente. It's a very cool word here. You can tell I'm over 40. Sente, a product which allows buyers from all over the world to pay for products and services from Uganda's businesses using mobile money and cards.
So my name is Alan Rakatungu, very long name. I'm like you said, the CEO and founder of Sente. So I'll start with an interesting, not story, but there's a time when team build, I used to work at MTN many years ago, so I'm not a young man like many of you. And the guy who was doing the team build, he had come on Cheo, and he was busy telling us, financials, financial management, how to make money. And one of the guys said, no, I'm not listening to that guy. They should bring Sudhir. So I am not Sudhir, but I have a story to tell, all right? So like I mentioned, today the theme is end poverty. And I think I'll talk a little bit about how I see the world and how I think, we can transform Africa's economy. So many years ago, I used to work at MTN and particularly in the mobile money platform. So I saw how it worked. I saw the amount of transactions going through the platform. I said, hey, brother, good business idea here. So 2012, I tell my boss I'm quitting. He's like, man, where the hell are you going? I said, I'm doing this entrepreneurship thing. So we started a digital gaming company in 2012. At that point in time, we didn't know what we're doing. I'd never done business in my life. I had no idea how to make money. All I could do was code. So we started, and we were actually very successful. I just didn't know, right? We launched, the numbers were growing like crazy. We're getting money in the bank. I had no idea that was successful because I was suffering so much. I was personally poor, and the customers would be calling all day and all night. And then it was like, shit. So something happened. We needed money. We put an idea in front of an investor, and they invested immediately. That should have been a cue then that we had a good idea. As usual, being inexperienced, we made some mistakes around equity stuff, but I wasn't excited about that idea. As you can tell, I wanted to do so much more than getting guys to play on their phones. So 2015, we hand over management to a new team. to do what my passion is. And I always had this thing because during that whole time, I was experienced programmer. I had all the connections to, I don't know, get the mobile money, APIs and whatever. But it was still very difficult for me. So I was thinking, how difficult is it for everybody else? Maybe I should do that for business. Maybe I should get people, make it easy for people to also start their own digital businesses. So I left the other businesses management. My friend is actually running it right now. And went to focus on this. This one is a harder idea, actually. Now I know, right? Because we started off with the idea of everybody's asking mobile money APIs, what? So we said, we will do an API. Developers, you guys are difficult customers. A guy would come, 100 transactions, he wants to give you 1%. So we pivoted a bit. We said, when we looked at the market, we realized that people did not have a problem, or at least in our opinion, of collecting payments. That's not actually what the problem is. The problem is, making sales. They're not selling enough. So we shifted our business to say, look, if you want to sell online, or you want to sell on a mobile device, then come to Sente. And that's what we do today. It has been up and down, but the last year we've started to pick up very well. We've helped about over 50 Ugandan businesses sell to over 10 countries. I won't disclose the amounts, but it's a considerable amount. And we've also raised some money to continue going forward. I like to say that raising money is not what do I say? Success, right? We're still in the hustle, like everyone else. Like I said, I'm no Sudir, so you don't have to, we're all hustling right here. But at this juncture in my talk, I would like to just ask, what do you think the greatest predictor of a startup is? I'm going to point at random. You. All things constant, what do you think the greatest predictor of a startup is? Yeah? You can shout. I'll Okay. 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 All good answers, all, factors. But I was watching a TED talk and the guy said, all things constant, team, market, access to capital, the greatest predictor of a startup is timing, right? Markets happen in cycles. And if you time the market at the perfect point, you will have a successful company. That is why you usually find that a lot of successful companies, it's like they all happen at the same time. If you remember, like SMS, it's like all the SMS companies, were successful at the same time. If you think about like real estate, so timing, riding a wave is, and I believe it, the greatest predictor of a startup success. And right now, at no point in history in Uganda and Africa has it been possible to, or easier to start a company today. Today is the best time, I believe, to start a company and find customers not too expensively and actually find success. So the timing is perfect. But while we're on the topic of poverty, this timing is double-edged, right? Because if you look at what's happening in the world, The reason why we're saying timing is because of technology. I can sit here in the innovation village, write some code, put an app on a phone, and have customers anywhere in the world paying me into my local bank account. The factors that make that possible for me is, okay, I'm educated, but as well, I have the technology. I have a certain, not to be, but there's a certain level of I don't want to say status because it might sound, that allows me to do that. And at this point in the world, most of you have that. Actually, I would say everybody in this room has that factor. So you are able to create something and make money. Now, going back the theme of poverty, the majority of our brothers and sisters do not have that, right? So what is going to happen is there's going to be a gap, right, between those who can and those who can't. Some people will call it the digital divide, whatever divide you want to call it. But that divide, because of those factors happening today, is going to widen. And it's going to get worse because of technology. Because technology is not labor intensive. So when you hear guys talking about AI, machine learning, IoT, that's just less manual jobs and more automated jobs, right? So the vision of what I think we should do, and this is really like geared towards the World Bank, is how can we prepare Uganda and our youth to participate in the economy going forward, right? Because the economy going forward is going to be digital, it's going to be global, it's going to be cashless, and if you do not have those skills, you are going to fall farther behind. So if we do not prepare our youth, and there's so many, right, for that world, that gap is going to become wider, and those gloomy poverty statistics we saw are going to become real or even worse, right? So our challenge here is, I guess most of you here, I'm thinking you building companies or in this sector, is not only to think about growing your business, but how can we bring our brothers and sisters into this digital economy, into this technology economy, so that they can participate. And that is what really Sente is about. We're thinking, if you're selling offline, if you're selling in a market, if you're selling in a mall, you're gonna get left behind. So you have to start to sell in the new economy. Otherwise, you will get left behind. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, very illuminating. I've wandered through things. I began off as a commercial industrial artist and designer. Spent some 10 years on Nasser Road. Well, Nasser Road has some good people, isn't it? At least I was one of those. Then developed all sorts of questions and went to study theology, bachelor's and master's, ran out of money, so I couldn't finish my PhD. Then came back and taught in a denominational institution, questioned dogma, and I was defrocked and thrown out. Best thing that has ever happened to me. Went volunteering in interreligious council, and somehow after I found myself with no job, a new television station was starting up, and I went there proposing an interesting idea to ask people questions about how they handle their belief in God vis-a-vis what they do. For instance, how do you, as a soldier, believe in thou shalt not kill as a Christian, and then turn out to pick guns and going to order people to kill others? Philosophical show, so I was allowed to get in, and somehow, either because of my age and probably I don't know what else, I was also asked to get involved in asking politicians, and that's where I met a very intelligent lady called Namara. and I ended up interviewing her. I don't know whether she knew then that I wasn't a journalist. I was just masquerading as. Up to today, I don't think I'm a journalist. I work with them. I'm just a storyteller who has developed a knack for asking questions and letting the public know that all politicians, irrespective of their sides, are liars. And I just enjoy it. Because I'm not attached to either of their sides. I'm more attached to exposing them. And I enjoy it. I really do. But then after I interviewed Evelyn, I asked myself, who is she and what does she do? Until today, I didn't know. But what I knew is she's active on Twitter. And every time I see her, she seems to be somewhere in some place of the world taking cool pictures. But now I get to know that Evelyn is a founder of Vouch Digital. Is it Vouch or Vouch? Sounds like a German word. But somehow she will tell us, and they provide varied digital vouchers that allow instant payment, thereby eliminating fraud. Good for once. Fraud and corruption in aid distribution. This should be good for Uganda, where refugee money disappears without prayer.
Thank you so much. He is such a showman. The one part of the story that he left out is that he actually called me for a very controversial topic. It was the miniskirt bill. He wrote to me and said, Evelyn, I need you on the show. You know, there's this bill that is out. I don't know why he thought I would be the best person to talk about the miniskirt.
Well, the guy who suggested your name said you had beautiful legs.
Okay, there you go. So yeah, that's what I had gone to the show to talk about, the miniskirt bill. So interesting. So I'll start my story at that point, I think where you ended. Vouch Digital, and then I'll take it backwards. So I want to ask you a question. How many of you guys has ever wanted to give money to anyone just out of goodwill, right? How many of you individually, or it's a family member who needs help or whatever, how many of you always want to give? What are some of the things that hold you back about giving? What frustrates you about giving money to any person? Sorry? Wrong motive? Please explain. What does that mean? Okay. Yep, go for it.
What frustrates me the most is that they haven't worked for it.
They haven't worked for it. So you want to get some sort of, why should I give you money?
Well, the Bible is against that.
You should just give someone money because they've worked for it. Who else? They don't appreciate. Okay, appreciation, great. To always ask for money. Yep. Accountability, there's no accountability. So all of those are valid answers that you give. There's lots of people, forget about even the big corporates that we think about. When you think about giving, you're thinking about refugees and all. But let's think about ourselves. We all want to give. How many times have you walked past a child begging and you wished you could actually give them money? But every time you think about giving them cash, you're wondering, what are they going to use this cash for? Are they actually going to use it to buy something that you would want them to use it for? Or are they going to use that cash to do something else? Right? And so what I'm trying to tackle is restoring trust, and restoring trust in the giving business. We all want to give something, but you want to ensure that if I give you money, I should know exactly what you're using that money for, and there should be a system that shows accountability between you and me and actually enforces that, right? So imagine if you walked by the roadside and you would give that young boy who is begging a voucher and tell them, go to the supermarket and pick up books, pick up something. So at that point, you've given them something that you feel is something they need. Even if they take it out and sell it, maybe in that process they will learn that I could actually do a business of selling things as opposed to being on the street. So this is what we're trying to change, the mindset of how do we really look at people giving money and ensuring that there's a trust process, there's an accountability process that is actually built into the systems to allow people know that what you're giving for is actually accountable. And that's how I started Vouch Digital. You know, we are trying to look at a space where a lot of companies are giving. You talked about the refugee crisis. There's a lot of corporates. You find corporates like Umeme want to give maybe fuel vouchers to their employees, but what happens, there's a lot of fraud at that point. So we are trying to make sure that these systems are accountable and that we ensure that every single point of that giving process is traced and you can look at it. So in terms of the theme of ending poverty, when I think about giving and when I think about what I'm talking about, one thing that always inspires me and one thing that has been built into my career is the whole factor of technology for good and technology for impact. When I grew up, I had a choice. I'm one of 4 kids. I'm the only girl. I have 4 brothers. And my father always instilled this thing that you can all do whatever you wanted to do. So I just somehow stumbled into technology. I wouldn't say that it was something that, you know, I wanted to do. I just felt like, you know what, I'm good at math, I'm good at physics, I'm just going to do technology. And as I went forward into my career, you know, going into a telco, I found that my calling was actually using technology for something good. So everything that I do today is always triggered into that. How can I use technology to make a difference into people's lives, to make processes better, to make things happen? And so one of the biggest places that I ever worked for, even before I started Vouch Digital, and sort of opened up my entrepreneurial journey, was working with a company called Solar Sister that empowered local women, rural women with economic opportunity, giving them an opportunity to use solar to empower their communities. So when I think of end poverty, it started right then, even earlier before I started my own company. The consciousness that technology can be used for good. The consciousness that we can do a lot to actually improve lives. That we ourselves, you, me, in this room can actually make a difference in what we do. When I think about markets, if you think about where China was 20 years back, if you look at all the emerging markets, if you think about China and India and Africa, and you look at the opportunity that is on this continent today, we are the new frontier. We have the powers, the tools within our hands to actually innovate for some of our most hardest problems that we face. So I'm always fascinated by that, and I'm always looking out for the next challenge. You need to think about all the issues that we are facing today and what we can do to actually end extreme poverty. I think all of us in this room, if you started thinking consciously about what your contribution can be to that, if you think about the next billion that is going to be connected to the internet, where are they going to come from? They're going to come from this continent. When you think about all the business models that you can think of that have already evolved and started out in China and India, where are they going to be? This is the place. So I think it's time for us to start thinking forward. In 20 years, what will my contribution have been in ending poverty? What am I doing today with my voucher business to actually end poverty? So for me, it's always a conscious call at the back of my mind that I'm not just doing technology for fun. I'm not just starting up a business for fun, but I'm actually always having a conscious call of what can I do to actually have an impact, to create something that can end poverty. So with Vouch Digital, like I said, we are right now looking at how we can even use the emerging technologies. We are developing a blockchain application with digital identities to really understand how we can capture all of those things that you talked about. I don't know what their motive is. I don't know what they'll use my money for. I don't know if they'll be accountable. And at the back of what we are building is listening to those voices, what you're saying about your money, and listening to those voices, they help us build a conscious product that can actually end poverty. For us, that's what drives us. It's going to the communities and understanding what is that need, why are you not giving, or why is giving so complicated, what would you want to see change in this process. It's learning, it's relearning, it's pivoting, it's finding out the best way to do it. We haven't cracked it yet, but we are still learning with our customers. We are still learning in the process. We are still learning with people who have done it before. But at the end of the day, we know that we will create change, and we have a mission to do that. So thank you so much. That's all I can share today.
I'd just like to ask Solomon, Alfred, Brenda, Alan, and Evelyn to come back and take seats, and then we have a conversation and then some questions. I'll ask each one of you, beginning with you at the very end, Solomon. There must be the one thing you say that if this didn't happen, I wouldn't be where I am. Because there are young people here who want to get where you are. And also, if you can briefly, after telling us that if this didn't happen at this point, I wouldn't be where I am. And also walk us very briefly through what's the most difficult bit of being Solomon. Because it's got to be there. We don't want to sit here and make people think that this is easy. Because the honest truth is, it isn't. Shoot.
I don't know how to answer the first question because there's just 1,000,001 things that I guess what you're looking for is an inflection point. I would say that
let me just make it simple.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that, for instance, if I wasn't forced against my will out of Bugema, I would not be the journalist I am. So if I had questioned dogma and they let me question dogma, I would have stayed in and I wouldn't be what I am today.
Yeah.
So when they sent me out and I came out, was also the time when Urban TV was restructuring and looking for people. So two things happened at just about the same time when they needed to happen. And that's how I am where I am. Does that help?
Maybe. All right. So I would say that if I'm to look back and just pick one moment in time when things kind of aligned, I would say that it was at a time when I went for an interview. And this is why I love reading so much. I went for an interview for my first job, and they asked me questions about the internet. And I had never been on the internet, but I answered them with confidence because I had learned a lot about the internet. And I was actually their best candidate from theory. And it was that moment in time that allowed me to discover this place where information was freely accessible. But that happened because someone believed in me enough to send me for that interview. It was one of those scenarios where I asked a friend of my dad if he had any jobs, because at that time I just wanted to do anything. And then he said, no, I think you can do this job. And so he sent me to someone else. And that moment of just believing in me, despite not knowing me that well, but just knowing that he saw potential in me, allowed me to eventually, it was like that one point that spread out into what we have now.
How difficult is it to pitch an idea that is new in a world where people believe in experience and have issues with young people? How difficult is that? Because you have to tell people, I'm trying to do this, and they ask you, explain it. Where else is it working in the world? No, this is new. You're young, you have a big idea. How difficult is it? And how frustrating maybe is it?
Yeah, so actually that's a very good answer to your second question. So the biggest challenge I've faced in my career is that I'm a little too crazy. This is every single thing that I've done has been at least 4 or 5 years ahead of the market. And this is because we were doing Flash animation at a time when people did not know what Flash was. We were doing robotics 7 years ago, at a time when we would go to government officials and they would say, what on earth are you talking about? There's no space for robotics in schools. And so just, and I guess that's the biggest part about pitching as well, because half the time you're talking about an idea that's so novel, that's so unique that people don't, have been rejected too many times to count. But the people who believe in you, and that's why the fellowships that I got were very, very instrumental. The people who believe in you, who say, you know what, I don't really understand what you're talking about, but here is some money, go try it out, we're okay if you fail. And so for me, that has been very instrumental in changing the way I look at things and finding the right partners for our work.
Very interesting and humbling. Evelyn, again, still at that very point, how important is it to develop internal staying power when everyone you talk to, even when it is family members, like for the typical Ugandan setting, they start going to church to pray for you because they think their child is losing it. They're getting spoiled. They've not gone to school and they should have. They were getting good grades. I don't know what is, and these are people you trust. How do you overcome that? And yet you have something you so believe in. Have you even been there?
I have been there indeed a couple of times, and I think for me, the pivot moment was when I walked in as a young IT person, as a young systems admin, very passionate about what I was doing as a young techie. I walked into one of the offices because I was the person who was supposed to set up this people's server, and it was Unix. And I remember vividly this guy who was the systems administrator, the boss of this company, looking at me and said, absolutely not. You are not going to touch my server. And I watched him go backstage to call my boss to really affirm that I was the person to do it. And before I had heard about stereotypes about women, and especially women in technology, but I'd not seen it, and it hadn't been vivid to me until that moment. And so for me, that was a turning point in my life. And I said, you know what? I don't believe in this is a man's world. I believe that every single person, if you have something that you want, you should actually go for it. So I sort of started my sort of evangelism in women and tech and women going for what they want to do. And that has sort of been the pivot for my career. Like every single time, I feel like I belong because I want to do something that I believe in. And I've had so many moments where, you know, the doubt, you know, the people just looking at you even before you get into the room because they want to see, do you actually know what you're talking about? And you have to prove yourself in the first 30 seconds to show that you are competent enough to do what you're talking about. So for me, it's that belief and it's that moment when someone thought I couldn't do something that actually put me into this entrepreneurial journey, but also into a journey of saying I can do whatever I want.
And still talking stereotypes, my sister is an engineer in the US, and one day she went to pitch a project. And then when she gets to this place, first of all, she's black, she has an accent, and she's young. So she gets to pitch this project. She's an oil engineer, and then the person where she's pitching says, I mean your boss. I mean, we wanted, he said, no, there's no one above me. No, there must be somebody. So they had to call back. What I'm asking is, how difficult is it as a young lady at the top in a world where you are selling to men? And that also has issues because after this they're thinking, well, can we do coffee? And you're saying, we're talking business. Does it have to end there? There are young ladies here who need to understand that world. How difficult is it to deal with it and to overcome it?
It's a difficult journey. I think it takes a lot of building the resilience, and I can't tell you that this is something that you can do in one day. We take the pleasure in knowing some women who've been there before us.
Okay.
And I think mentoring and being a part of that network of women that you look up to has been very key for me. And every point of my career, I've always had one woman that I'm looking at and I'm saying, I'm going to do exactly what she's done. And that has changed over time. It's not the same woman that I'm looking at all the time. When I hit that point, I actually look at someone else that I aspire to be like. So for the women here, I think you have to have some sort of thing that works for you. You know, who inspires you? who do you look at and you say, you know, if this person could do this, I believe I can do it. So for me, that has been my sort of thing. I find a woman, I look at them, and I'm like, oh, this person applied for this and they got in. Okay, so why wouldn't I apply for it and I get in? So I apply for that. And then I get it. It's like, wow, I actually did that. They started a company because there's this woman called Dorcas Mudhoni, and I literally followed her all of my early career in tech, and I was like, oh wow, she won the Anita Borg Award for doing something amazing in her community. I want to see what she's doing, and I was doing similar work, so I applied for that, and then I won the Change Agent Award for Anita Borg. And then she started a company in Kenya which was so successful, and I was like, why wouldn't I do that? Because I have the power to do that. So that ended. Then I started looking at other women that are above me, and then, you know, look at the things they're doing, the traits, and then follow those through. But it's not easy. You're going to be judged, you're going to be ridiculed. There are times where you feel it's really hard, but I think the inner resolve to do things always pushes you forward.
Alan, it's easy to be employed because you have KPIs. If you fill them, you're sorted, you have working times, you come in, you go out. But you see, when you're boss, you don't stop working. Even when you go home, the idea is to complete. So you're working and working and working. It's tough at the top, isn't it?
I want to give this answer in two parts. Yes and no. So when I did my first company, I was a total workaholic. Sunday to Sunday, 7 to midnight. I was literally dying at the office. I would not go for family gatherings, birthdays, weddings. I was busy working.
Is that because that's what it takes?
I'm still finishing. I was busy working. And what experience has taught me is, look, and he touched on it. I think if you're going to be successful, have a team, right? If it's not your burden, only you, then you can actually breathe. So with Sente, I have a fantastic team. I have, co-founders, some of the most brilliant minds in this country. We've been lucky to add, other people to the team. And sometimes I actually get to work and I don't have much to do, actually. So I think that, yes, you need to work hard, but it's very important, and I think sometimes it's not a Ugandan trait thing to trust and co-found and share responsibilities. But if you can get your vision and tell somebody about it and sell them and then bring them onto the team, then you bring in a salesperson, then suddenly you don't have to do sales because they're so much better at you than sales. You bring in somebody to do finances, so you no longer now have to miss your tax payments and whatever because somebody's watching out for that. Then you can actually be more free. And now I'm married and I need to...
Very interesting. Brenda, I want to come to you to just walk us through the whole idea of how you start engaging as a local Ugandan girl, start engaging internationals and getting, because in some cases there are stereotypes, and start to let them know that there's a Ugandan who is not going to steal money in dollars. They're actually going to use it for the things they're talking about. In a sense, when I walked into Urban TV, I was 39. It was a young TV for young people. And many had no business there at 39, even though I had waited 18 years to get into TV and tried all TVs in Uganda. And they said, no, I still believe that I had it. So pitching to people and just getting them to believe that yes, in the words of Obama, yes, you can. How difficult is it? And what goes into the preparation? Is it mental? Is it psychological? Is it dressing? What exactly goes into that, at least for you?
Can you hear me? Well, for me, it's been a long journey. And I think everyone on this panel understands that for me, it's been a long journey engaging people at that level. And I started from the very bottom, making a fool of myself on stages and speaking a lot of trash and coming back home and beating myself up and then getting better. How I speak now is not how I spoke in 2013.
So it comes
That's,
with time.
it comes with time, and I think we need to build that patience. But also, with every organization, every individual that you engage, you have to show them that it's worth their while. One of the organizations that we work very closely with is the United States Africa Development Foundation. Quite frankly, the question that you asked him, I would answer that without those guys, I wouldn't be where I am. And the reason that they continue to work with me and the reason that they continue to put me in touch with other organizations, other people, and expose me to bigger opportunities is because I have been accountable. You know, there's reporting, and then there's reporting the other way. As an accountant, it's easy to actually mix up the numbers, but it starts from you as the entrepreneur. How transparent, how much of a person of integrity are you that when these people read your reports, it actually really tallies with what you're telling them that you're doing, yeah? So when I tell them that I'm building a facility, I'm using their money to build a facility where I'm going to recycle plastic, am I really building that facility, or am I taking pictures of other people's facilities and sending to them? From that, and sometimes they come and do spot checks. They say, oh, we'll be here tomorrow. And you know, if you're crooked, you will not have a facility up tomorrow. So that's how they learn to trust you. And from one organization, I've been exposed to so many other people that have helped me.
I understand that it's important to learn to deal with setbacks, because at the level where all of you are operating, definitely there have been false starts, there have been mistakes plenty. How do you stop your setbacks from setting you back, and you just allow them, or you use them to get yourself to where you really want to be?
I mean, every day I feel like, even just this morning, you get this email and you feel like, okay, I need to close my company now and go ask for my job back, you know? Recently...
even today?
This morning, I got an email.
It's very honest here today, isn't it?
Yeah, I got an email that just threw me off, and I remember I ran to Evelyn and I told her, I need to talk to you because I don't think I can do this. Yeah? The first thing I think I would do is really surround yourself, build a support network. If, the weight of the entrepreneur, in fact, if somebody had told me while I was at Deloitte that it would be like this, I'd say, you know what, it's okay. Let the entrepreneurs do their thing. I can't sign up for this thing. But with every single day, I know that, okay, I'm accountable. My mentors are believing in me. They are waiting for me. One of my mentors told me, you're the only chance I have to fly a private jet. Of course, she was joking, but I could see how much she believed in me. And every time she sends me this message saying, I'm rooting for you, I'm thinking, I can't let her down, so I can't give up. And the reason that I tasked you to come and climb Mount Kilimanjaro with me is because that mountain for me is representing this year and my entrepreneurial journey. So I hope I get to the peak and then, yeah.
Very interesting. One of the ways in which I get myself running all sorts of crazy distances is when my muscles get tired, I focus on my bank balance, and that just fires me. Just remember what my bank balance is. Just put a big challenge in my head, and that just gets my spring back into my step. And literally, that's what I do, even this evening if I get a chance. Coming to you, there are young people here who do not know whether they're interested in startups or innovations for the sake of solving problems, or they're interested in them for the sake of the money that comes out of it. How do you know where the difference is, that I'm in this for the money because I may tap into a funding that will come with a cool 4x4 car and blah, blah, blah? How do you make the difference? Or have you even gotten there yet?
Wow. Okay, fine. Sure, thanks for this. You've asked me a question that I've never really thought about, interestingly. I think the difference really comes back to the person who's leading the team. Supposing that is me, that place comes from within you. Because this coming from within myself, because there are many times you will get an opportunity to be funded, and the person mentions a figure, and your budget is actually less than that figure, and you want to do like what Brenda was saying, to try to make it fit to that. But then
so the temptation is there.
Yes.
Like honestly.
Yes, okay. It's there. But there's this thing that still comes up from within yourself, and you ask yourself, okay, if I do this, is it going to lead me to continue solving this problem? Because for us as entrepreneurs, our driving factor is to solve a problem. For many of us and others who are on this other side, you realize that you will be always asked, what is the problem that you're solving? How big is that problem? If it isn't, then you probably have to find different avenues. So you're not coming to this side. So for me, it is all going to come back to the integrity that you have developed as a person. Because most successful entrepreneurs, I don't think they land on the first business and then it grows to be like what it is for us today. Like many of us have good stories. I have a couple of startups that I did before, and I know why they failed. Of course, I had money and everything, but still they failed. So from that, you get this kind of experience. So for a young person who hasn't really gotten the experience that I have in terms of this startup ecosystem, one thing would be to find a co-founder who has got that integrity, somebody who's going to check you always. You want to do this, but you have someone, you know, you may get employees and things like that, but I can easily trash what you're saying. But if you got a co-founder who is solid, and you can't just say what you want to say, he has a say. So it's very important for someone who hasn't got into this to have a strong co-founder, somebody who can actually really challenge you on the decision. For me, I think that would be a great way for someone who's getting into this for the first time. But for me, it's integrity. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together to the entire panel. I'm busy learning a lot of things for myself. The reason I came here is to learn. Yes, I'm an old man. But one of the things I asked my boss, it's very interesting working for somebody younger than you are. My boss, CEO Keen, is 41, I am 44. But one day I asked him, why did you do this? Because there was a point at which NBS was consuming 60 million, it was making 36. I asked him, Keen, why did you throw money in this? Because at that point, it's not about money. And his answer was the most interesting. He said that if you're involved in the media, there comes a time when if there is any serious discussion going on in the country, you have to be on the table. And he said, in Uganda, Parliament has been confiscated. The ministers have been taken. It's only the media that is left to help this nation, and I want to be part of helping it. The cost doesn't matter. And I think that has inspired me to be able to be part of somebody that believes in something bigger than making money, because he probably may not even make it. I don't know why you are here. If it is making money, you will. But I've interviewed some very rich people. They don't seem also to be the happiest. Let's get the questions coming.
My name is Walter Niwagaba Kakoro. So my question goes to the second lady from my left.
Evelyn.
Yeah, Evelyn, thank you. She talked about a very beautiful innovation. But, I tried to analyze the idea of us getting to know that the money that we are giving may be to the people who are more needy or less advantaged in life, should have accountability, and we should be sure about what they are going to use it for. But I tried still to analyze the kind of business model that you are using as Evelyn and how you're coming in with your company, because at the end of the day, in order for that to flourish, you must have a business model that is bringing in revenue so that the impact can be bigger and even more sustainable for the future. Yeah, so I would wish to listen from that business model that you're using.
Good.
How do you gain from, from that?
My question could be similar to Mr. Kakuru's question. The revenues, how do you guys make the money? I've heard of the impact, I have had the inspiration, but how do you tap into the money? Because we need to know that this brings cash back to your accounts. Yeah, and also we borrow the idea and get on the...
At any point in your journey, been disappointed by your team, the team you thought that would make you what you are now? And if yes, what did you do in the situation when you feel that your team is letting you down?
That's Alfred and Alan. Alan, you also spoke about building a team, yes. The lady behind, Valentine.
Yeah. Solomon, how do you get to convince different schools that what you're teaching is something relevant and they really need it in their curriculum, or the kids really need it?
People don't want you to spoil their kids, We're very protective of our kids.
Mine is a very quick one to Solomon. First of all, kudos to his idea. I think it's very brilliant. My only concern, my question is, how scalable is the Fundi bot idea? Because for an idea that is very fascinating, and I suppose you've been around for a while, my colleague over here is asking how come we don't even know about it?
We'll begin with you, Alfred.
Okay, the gentleman asked about how the team was built with all these financial constraints and things like that. But I didn't have the idea. I didn't know exactly what to do until I kept sharing my idea with whoever could give me an ear. Whoever I would get, I would come to Alan, I meet Alan, I tell him, man, I have this thing, and then I speak to him and just collect positive, because sometimes people tell you certain things you don't actually want to hear at that time. So the thing is to learn how to sort. But I'll speak to everyone. I've spoken to Solomon of Swipe to Pay. I've spoken to a couple of people. So this kind of thing got me to approach a gentleman from the US who had come for the blockchain conference. I saw Zcash, and I just went to the guy and asked the guy, what are you here doing? And he told me stuff. So I just told him, I have this thing. Come have a look at it. So he told me things, and that was my turning point then. He told me, start this thing as soon as yesterday. And I told him I don't have the money. He said, you don't need money, you need people. I told him, I still don't have the money for these people. And he said, okay, fine. If you believe your idea is this good, then you should be able to get someone. Talk to Brenda and ask her to get on board. What is Brenda good at? So I identified, we have, the Kano team is right here. We have about 7 here, and there are 10 more who are not here. And many people ask me today, how did you manage to get, when you come to the boardroom, we're 17 in a product development meeting. And how did you get all these guys together is one thing. I had to speak to each team member separately after understanding their expertise and what they're going to bring on board. Like Alan was saying, now, I don't really have much to do. All I need to do is keep iterating the solution and innovating more and more. So for me, the thing to get the team is work on your idea, develop your idea, which is going to come with too much reading. Your second question was about how to get this team to a satisfactory place for me. Like, have I ever been disappointed? I'll tell you one question. I've selected this team personally, and I have never been disappointed. But here is the thing. It's because of what I do. So at Kano Africa, we have, I call them innovation lessons, that I am the teacher. And every Saturday, the whole team comes and sits in class. So I have to teach everything that I know. Everything that I know. So for me, that's the place that has gotten me never to be disappointed in any of my team members.
Don't you fear your thing will be stolen?
Wow, that's very interesting. Most of the successful entrepreneurs know this. Your idea can only get better the more you share it. It can never be good if you don't share it. The way Kano is right now is not the way it was 9 months ago, because we got to a point with my co-founders and we didn't want to speak about it because of this same mindset. But we realized that every time we attempted to speak to someone, we actually went back home and reiterated. So Kano Africa is not where it is because of what we thought on our own. It is because of what we shared with people. That's why it is what it is today. That's why I can speak at any conference there is in the world, but only because I shared this idea with someone.
Good. Brenda, somebody asked, where's the money? Because there are bills to pay. I think it is him who asked. You can answer that one in addition to the other ones you thought were directed to you.
Okay. Where's the money? I think for me, really, it's pretty straightforward. You have a product, you sell it at a price. I just make sure that my cost has been met, and then I just add a margin. And for me, it's straightforward, really. There's no complicated mathematics about it. The gentleman asked, and you raise a really valid point, because it's also a big problem for us. Sorting that plastic is, we see the women that actually pick out the plastic for us, and that's exactly the experience they go through. Again, what we have done, I mean, we started by going to hotels, yeah, because these are the biggest collection points, because they have events. And I mean, there are some like Serena, which have amazing sorting procedures. I mean, it's 5-star. You could have a meal in their garbage place. Amazing. But there are some hotels that don't. So with that, we've introduced our own separate plastic bags. And I mean, like Protea now, they're separating, they're taking out the plastic separately and the organic waste separately. And then it's easy for us to collect, and it's clean, and it's just the kind of plastic that we want. Of course, with households, it's a bit of a long shot, but what we want to do is engage from the guys that collect it, the bin guys, because they can decide to give you the 2 separate caveras, and then encourage the people that they collect from to sort it. But it's still going to be a long shot. We are prepared for it, but we know it's going to be a long shot.
Well, somebody can say that if you turn the idea of teaching urban neighborhoods sorting plastic, you could get actually somebody to fund for it, because it will make garbage collection a lot cheaper. But that's not to say that somebody may be interested in that idea. Maybe somebody will. Let's hear from you, Alan, in terms of your answers.
Yes, so I'll answer 2 questions, one about the team and one about the money. So starting from the team, have I been disappointed? Yes, many times. And we've screamed and shouted and abused each other, but it's not personal. That is the one thing to understand. If you're passionate about the idea, you think somebody is slacking, I see some of, but one thing I also wanted to mention, I think I have the best team in Uganda. I have the best developers. I have the best customer service people. I have the best people to find our customers. Yes, I just wanted to get that out so that they forgive me for screaming them out, for screaming at them. And they also scream back at me, by the way, sometimes very explicit, in a very explicit ways. But I think it's very healthy for the team. When you just, if you're disappointed, don't hide, say it. Yeah? Then the other one is about making money. And I think that is one of the most important lessons that I've learned in my entrepreneurship journey. When I started out, I wasn't very particular about making money. I just had a good idea and I wanted to execute it. And that was a mistake. Now I'm more cognitive of the fact that you need to have an idea about whether your business will, and they asked the question about scale, will scale and make money very early on in the business. You need to know your unit economics. You need to have the very basic numbers about your customers. How much does it cost you to acquire them? How much does it cost you to keep them? how much money are you making from them? And I've found that as you get to have those numbers in your head and well versed with them, when you talk to investors, it's easy to convince them because you're not giving them kabozi about, the world, we are suffering, poverty levels are increasing. The guy is thinking, I want to get back my money, right? So if you can think very deeply about your unit economics and extrapolate them and see if you make money at scale, then it's easy to raise money. And there's still a danger, right? Because that's what keeps me up at night, actually. Sometimes I go back to those numbers and they're just too damn scary. You're thinking maybe I won't make it, but that's okay. If you don't make it, that's fine. But have your basic unit economics on point, and then think about them. Then find the money. I know that's the easy thing. Find the money to fund at the point where you've crossed the line and you can continue to make money. That's my answer. I don't know whether I've answered it properly. Yeah.
Business model. So that's a very important question that you asked. So when we started, it was very easy to think about. We thought, how many cash-based programs do we have, for instance, in the country? And we thought there's so many development agencies that run cash-based transfer programs year-long. There are people who are trying to send subsidies to end users in the country. You have government programs that also run cash transfer programs. And we thought, okay, that's an easy way for us to make money. So we've been running a B2B. At the very beginning, we had a B2B model where we would go to, let's say, a development agency that has a cash transfer program that we know of, and we know who their beneficiaries are, and convince them and say, hey, if you use a platform like ours, this is the kind of information you'll get. We'll give, instead of you giving cash to the end user, we'll take that onto the platform. So we are integrated with MTN and Airtel. We're using mobile money to transfer that money to the end user. So instead of giving the end users cash, we give them digital vouchers, right? And then these are distributed because most of them that we worked with were in the most remote areas. So we distribute this to end users, they use a USSD, and then we have all of this information on the back end and they get their accountability. So that was, easy in terms of thinking about it, but it becomes very complicated when you're running a B2B model. One, your cash flows, because getting into negotiating one deal and actually closing that contract and realizing that money coming through, especially for most of these development agencies, it takes a long while. So you'll find that while you might be lucky to get one deal, it might take you longer to get more deals. So we started thinking about going back to the table. How do we make money more quickly and improve our cash flow methods? And I co-sign what he said. Talk to people every single time you get a chance. So we've been doing that. I've been speaking to everyone I find. Samson said that I see you all in all these places taking cool pictures. Most times I'm actually doing business. I'm not just taking cool pictures. So for instance, last week while I was at one event, I was speaking to some guy and telling him about my business model. And immediately, even before I finished, he was like, oh my goodness, this is how I think this could work in this market. And he was coming at it in a more private sector corporate way that we hadn't even thought about. We were just looking at the development agency side, and we are now looking at this model that is going to be more hybrid, business to customer, but also business to customer, that is going to get us the cash flow that we need to move forward. And having this conversation with him really made us realize so many other things we can do with what we have built already. And so I think with business models, it's always iterating and speaking to people and understanding what's possible. So right now we are hoping to run a pilot with this person who's in Nigeria. He's opening up a market for us in Nigeria and Ghana, but really what we are looking at is saying, think of all the vendors. Think of the Shell petrol stations. Think of all the guys who give, even the corporates. How do you open up your platform so that we can register all of them as vendors on the platform, and then go to MTN who actually gives out, let's say, fuel cards, and say, Shell is on our platform. If you want them to, take out fuel cards, just use your vouchers. So they can come on the platform and actually order for vouchers. So this is a model that now allows people to get onto our platform without us going to looking out for every customer one-on-one and taking long to sign those contracts. So it's an iteration that goes on, but I think it's a question of, we're always working on it, but hopefully we can find something that really sticks. Yeah, thanks. Oh, and I just wanted to say one part about the team. Someone talked about the team. And yes, sometimes you will get disappointed really, really badly. And I know this because I started with a co-founder, and I know how you can actually have the worst when you thought you can actually have the best. Because sometimes the person you thought was the person you trusted to be your co-founder, or the people that on your team can actually mean to be the people that you don't expect to be, not people of integrity, and you'll be banned. I was banned, and I had to learn early enough that this is not a good deal, and we had to dissolve that, and I had to go solo. So there are moments where you will find that as an entrepreneur that it's not always going to be easy breezy, my team is the best. You'll have times where it's going to be a serious struggle, and you have to find how do you move forward, how do you have those tough conversations, and how do you move forward. Yeah, thanks.
All right, thank you. I'm sure all of us can speak for great length about managing teams. My answer to that is there are a couple of quotes that work for me when I'm hiring people. The first is hire great people, give them the right tools, get out of their way so that they can actually do what you've hired them to do. I also believe in hiring people who are better than I am so that we can offload that work to them. And then the one that's a bit controversial is that the people who will get you to your first million shillings are not the same people who will get you to your first billion shillings. So you need to think about that.
How about hands off, eyes on?
I am very hands off. I'm very hands off. Yeah, I like to not stress. Revenue sources. We're a non-profit, so the majority of our revenue comes from funders. Our approach to asking for money is to tell them that there's poverty, the world is ending, we have a solution for that.
Very honest.
Yes, because it's true. Because the work that we are doing is impact work. It's not a business. So we focus primarily on what the problem is and how our solution can solve that. We do generate revenue as well. There are some schools. 90% of our work is free. The 10% that we charge classes for allows us to generate about 18% of our revenue. So it's a nice way of moving towards self-sustainability. The lady asked a question about convincing schools about the relevance of your work. You kind of have to demonstrate it. There are multiple audiences that you need to convince about your work. Some audiences require evidence, which means you need to have a monitoring evaluation framework to show that your inputs match your outputs and your outcomes and all these things. But for schools mostly, every single school is invested in helping their students perform better, theoretically. Practically, they're more invested in helping them cram examinations so that they can pass. So what you need to do is figure out how you approach, how your learning impacts the child and how the administration perceives that. The honest truth is many schools are not interested in anything outside of the school curriculum. They want strictly what's being taught because the government is demanding a lot from them. They're supposed to teach so much material within a very short time. So your best way of helping them and appreciate what you're doing is show the correlation to the curriculum and show the correlation to students' increase in performance. Anything else is secondary. I don't know, career development, etc., all that is secondary. Look at what they're looking for in terms of pushing their school on top of the map and then address those needs specifically. A gentleman asked about curriculum integration. We are in talks with the Ministry of Education. We've done some demonstrations to the Commissioners of Education. And so we do have sort of policy and advocacy angle. But our approach towards policy and advocacy is that we go to the government, we show them what we are doing, we ask for permission to go to schools, we go to these schools, we keep doing our work. The government will have one conversation with you today, and then they will next talk to you 2 or 3 years from now, right? So if you're waiting for those conversations, you're not going to make a lot of progress. What you need to do is ensure that every single time you go back to them, you have some data that shows the impact that you've had. You have some learnings, you have some schools, you have some people who can talk very great things about your work. And so in our last meeting, our first meeting, we met with one commissioner of education. This was like in 2014. This time we went to give an update, and before we knew it, the room was full of 8 or 10 commissioners of education because they had heard about what we were doing. And for the gentleman who's not heard about our work, we do a lot of shouting on social media. We don't really talk a lot anywhere else. We like to focus on doing the work. Our primary audience is schools. So we go to schools, we talk to schools, we announce in schools. We talk a lot on social media to just tell the public what we are doing. So we are not a PR-based organization. We are a results-based organization. And the results... so government is very interested in impact, in evidence. So next year we'll be taking the results of our first monitoring and evaluation framework to just kind of show them that this is what we've been doing. We've been teaching teachers, we've been providing tools for education, and these are the results. And then they'll say, oh, this is great. We should think about starting to begin trying to implement it in the curriculum. And then we're like, all right, let us know when you're ready. We shall come back in a few years. Scalability, our ultimate goal is to be irrelevant. This means that education is working well, innovations like ours are no longer needed. The reality to that is completely different. So our approach to scalability is to work with the teachers. It's the only way we can scale our impact. We cannot claim to have enough of a workforce to replace education in any country. But what we can do is give the teachers the tools that they need to teach better in their classrooms. So what this means for us is we have multiple approaches to the work that we are doing. The primary approach is that we go to schools and help them improve their learning in their classrooms for what they're supposed to be teaching, which means we provide tools for learning science better, we provide tools for learning mathematics and biology better, and eventually we will also go into numeracy and literacy. But the primary goal is whatever they're supposed to teach in the classroom, they should we create better ways of helping them teach that. And then our own sort of like more advanced curriculum is skills-based, innovation-based, where we say, this is what the future is looking like. Let's help kids get to that next level. Yeah.
Well, I never went to journalism school and I have no regrets about it. But this is what I have been told loosely about broadcasting, that you end a show at the point when everybody thinks it should go on a little bit more. And I think we are right at that point. In trying to keep myself in the business, talking about innovation, the business of emceeing weddings, I realized that I had to do something nobody else does, at least not many do, and that is sing as well as MC weddings.
Thank you for hanging with us since we got started in this conversation. For me, I'm personally excited that we're here and we can have this conversation with the World Bank, with entrepreneurs, trying to understand how do we collectively speak to the problems we're facing as a country, as a nation, as a region, as Africa, to solve our problems. And for me, sincerely, I 150% believe in entrepreneurs as a force for change and innovators to represent the opportunities we need to tap in. And it reflects in my own story. And I didn't get to share a lot, but if you're an innovator out there, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a student, it doesn't matter what you're thinking. I'm 100% convinced that your dream or your aspiration is valid, right? Is valid. And that's the single mission of the Innovation Village, to build what we call mission entrepreneurs who are focused on getting their ideas out there to solve problems that we are struggling with. At this time, we're not here by mistake. We worked with the World Bank to make sure that we build up a conversation surrounding, more importantly, entrepreneurs and the youth who represent a big percentage of the population. And across our work, the biggest challenge we've always found is we don't have many people who are convening and catalyzing conversations to help open up new opportunities, unlock block spaces for various entrepreneurs. And I'm very excited that we have the World Bank with us to help accelerate that work. And at this time, I'm very excited to welcome Tony Thompson, the country manager, World Bank. Let's put our hands together. We wouldn't be here to share a few insights, and yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here. I think Samson would refer to me as certain processes that are keeping you from the refreshments afterwards. But I wanted to share a couple of ideas with you before we close. First of all, I'm brand new in Uganda. I'm delighted to be here. I just arrived and started work in August. And so this is a real privilege for me to be able to come and be part of the conversation and listen and learn from all of you. There are two things that I didn't know. There are more than two things I didn't know before I walked into the room tonight, but let me share two of them with you. The first is I didn't really know this place existed and that you had such a hotbed of entrepreneurial talent. Okay, so I found out I was getting this job, I think, back in February or March. And in April, I had the chance to go to Washington. And at Washington, I had dinner with this high-powered delegation from Uganda. And this was the time the Black Panther movie had come out and so on and so on. And I was asking them, well, what do I need to know? What advice can you give me when I go to Uganda? And they said, oh, Tony, let me tell you. So I leaned over to this very distinguished Ugandan citizen who shall remain nameless. He said, Tony, the thing you need to know is Wakanda is Uganda. Okay. So ever since then, I've been looking for the evidence. I know the Wazunga, the white people, aren't supposed to ever see it, but I've been looking very hard. But I walked in through the door, and I think I'm beginning to get a glance of it. So if you want to keep it secret, you've got to be more careful. But if you want to start building on that, then maybe the future is there. The second thing I learned, okay, is that no matter how I dress, I'm never going to be as cool as Samson. Okay, if I got his name right. Yeah. Oh yeah, there he is. Good. Even if I get a hat, I still don't think I can match it at all. So anyway, suitably modest. So look, I've come in. I'm new. I'm fresh. I'm leading the World Bank team here. I've heard the World Bank has a big footprint here. We have a lot of influence. Generally, the people I've spoken to, maybe they're being very nice to me, but they're saying very nice things about the World Bank and about the role that we've played here. So I'm responsible for the strategy. I come in, new. What do I do? How do I try to figure this thing out? Okay, I want to share with you 4 numbers that I have in my mind that are what I'm using at the minute to help guide me as I lead our team here in Uganda. Okay, the first number is 80 million. Okay, 80 million. That's the population of Uganda. Not today, but that's what the population is going to be in 2040. Okay, so the question then is Uganda in 2040 going to be Wakanda? So we have the vision here from the government, a futuristic, artistic impression of Kampala City with bullet trains and beautiful environment and everything working really well. Or are things going to be a little bit out of control with 22 million people living in the cities and everybody having to line up to go to the bathroom? Okay. So how do we plan, how do we talk with the government about what Uganda looks like as a society of 80 million people? And it can go one way or the other. The second thing I wanted, the second number, and just hold on the slide just yet, the second number is 0.38. 0.38, okay? I discovered some time ago, I was going to ask, but maybe people will be too shy. Does anybody use an online dating service? So, okay, everybody's too shy, okay? So, but online dating services have something in common I discovered about 10 years ago with credit reference bureaus, okay? It's actually exactly the same business model. What they do is they get all this data, as much data as they possibly can on all of us, and what they try to find out is which of the data points give the best prediction for a certain outcome. Okay? And in the case of a credit reference bureau, what they're interested to know is to predict the probability that you're going to pay your loan back. And in the case of the online dating site, what they're trying to figure out is the probability that you're going to really, strike magic with the other person that they're trying to match you up with. Okay? So to do this, they use an algorithm. And the World Bank for the past year and a half, has been working on an algorithm, not to find you the perfect partner, not to figure out the probability that you'll pay your loan back, but rather the likelihood that a country as a society is going to flourish and is going to do really, really well. Okay? So we just run the numbers for the first time for about 150 something countries around the world. Uganda was one of those countries, and their score was 0.38. Okay? And this is the algorithm. And it's all about the human capacity that Uganda has, and how well is that human capacity going to serve Uganda as it proceeds towards a new society of 80 million Ugandans in 2040. And it's made up of four different elements. The number of children who survive until the age of 5, and the number for Uganda is 95. The percentage of 15-year-olds who have a life expectancy of at least 60, and for Uganda that's currently 70. The number of children who grow up stunted because of malnourishment or malnutrition, and right now for Uganda that number is 29. And then the likelihood that a child who starts schooling at 4 completes 7 years of school. So you put all those numbers, you run the algorithm, and the number for Uganda is 0.38. Of course, we're the World Bank, so that number by itself, we just don't want to leave it hanging there. So the next number is 137, okay? And this is where Uganda is doing vis-a-vis the other 157 countries that we did this work on. Now, in this scale, 157 is not the best. Actually, 1 is the best. So Uganda at the minute is at number 137. So there's a lot of work that has to be done if you're going to bring the rest of your Ugandan brothers and sisters along with you here in this room, and all the fantastic human capacity that you have here. The next number then is 122. One of the entrepreneurs here, sorry I haven't learned your names yet, but one of the entrepreneurs just as I was coming in, he was saying Uganda is a fantastic place to do business. One of the best places in the world to start a business. Okay, I'm so happy that that is his experience and that it's working for him. But when we do these surveys of every country in the world and make this assessment of how easy is it to do business in Uganda, I'm afraid the number is not so good. It's 122. So there's 121 countries in the world that are a better place to start a business or to run a business than in Uganda. Not to put you off, but I think the important part of the conversation that we can have here, that we can have with the authorities is, what does Uganda need to do to get from 122 and start going up those rankings as fast as you possibly can? So, there's a long way to go. This is kind of a nerdy thing. I'm sure there's a lot of nerds in the room. But right now, if the perfect score was 100, Uganda's now at 56.94. So a lot of work to be done there. Do I have another number, Sheila, or not? Remind me. Oh, yeah. So just a little thought to go to finish up with and to get us on to the refreshments. So what are ye doing to keep up with the Kardashians? Okay. And I will never be as cool. I'm the oldest person in the room, so all of you are young to me. Okay, and thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us as we celebrate End Poverty Day. And congratulations on the contribution that each one of you are making towards that goal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Strong round of applause, please. I'd like to thank you once again for taking your time off to be here this evening, to connect, get inspired. How many of us have been inspired by the stories of entrepreneurs? Yeah, impressive. Yeah, get inspired. And when we're talking with Sheila, say hi. She likes being in the background. Come. The idea of being here this evening started with Sheila. So tell us why.
This day was about the future of jobs, and we felt that this was the right place and you were the right partner for us to realize that goal, to be able to share the stories of entrepreneurs, some of the most enterprising and innovative minds. And we felt that that could inspire others, other young people that we have invited today to, be inspired to do the same or to do even better. So we're very, very glad to have partnered, and we thank you so much for hosting us today. We hope to come again. We definitely hope to come again. I just wanted to end by announcing that today we are also launching the Blog for Dev, blogging competition for youth. We've been running it for the last 2 years, and Uganda has been performing, incredibly well. So beginning today, you're welcome to share your innovation, a 500-word blog. Go online, look up the form, and please apply. We have such fantastic ideas, and we would like to see those ideas come to life, but also to give you the platform. The first prize for this, besides some pocket money, is an opportunity to present your innovation to our senior management team at the spring meetings in Washington, D.C. in April. And we will also continue to work with you and see how to help you innovate and also to bring your ideas to life. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's put our hands together for Sheila. So my number is that by 2020, we're going to have 25,000 young people getting into the labor market every week. Yeah, 25,000 young people. In my other life, before I started spending 26 hours a day with entrepreneurs, I used to be a head of talent with Umeme Limited. And the most unfortunate part of my job was saying no to 700 job applications every month. Yeah, personally, I had to apply for 80 jobs before I got my first job, So I took a bold step to begin this journey with the village, and in 2 years we've been able to build this community of entrepreneurs, build this community of very inspiring people who are going beyond whatever challenges we are facing to create opportunities, not just for themselves, but opportunities for others. And